Call the Board of Selectmen regular meeting of January 8th to order. Item 1 is on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. I would ask everyone rise and raise the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, and nation, indivisible. Thank you. And item 2 on the agenda, good evening, Superintendent Gilbert. Welcome. Woodbridge Board of Education. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to all of you. Happy 2020. I don't have a very long report today. It just seems like I was here just a little while ago. The holiday coming and going so quickly, but it's great to see all of you, and it was great to welcome back our students and our staff last Thursday as we get the rest of the year rolling along at Beecher Road School. Our enrollment at Beecher, as I mentioned last meeting, has generally held steady this year. We did actually have 8 new students enroll since I last spoke to you in December. We're at 855 students, which is still below the projected 868 students that was projected by our demographer last year. In regards to our current FY20 budget, I have no more official news to share than I did from last month. As you might remember, I mentioned that we needed to do some temporary mid-year hiring due to mandated special education needs and individual education plans. Last month, our financial reports showed an overall surplus of $59,000 and change, made up of a special education surplus of $128,000 and change, and a regular ed deficit of $69,000. At our January finance meeting, which is coming up in a few weeks, I do expect this surplus to be reduced a little bit due to employing a greater number of long-term substitutes than we usually do have to. And lastly, I want to mention that our cafeteria and extended day program budgets continue to be showing very successful balances, and the programs are very, very successful in terms of the usage of them. Capital budget, I just want to again thank you for the opportunity to come to you and present the capital budget last month. As you know, at the town's request, we only asked for technology infrastructure money moving forward, which will hopefully assist the town in concentrating on retiring the current debt. So thank you again for that opportunity. In regards to the operating budget for next year, fiscal year 2021, at the Board of Education's December meeting, I did present my superintendent recommended budget. The overall increase that I presented to the board was less than 1%, 0.76% to be exact. The board did approve my recommended budget, and I'll look forward to bringing it to all of you later this month. As you know, part of our budget process this past year, we created a budget task force, which was made up of stakeholder representatives from all different parts of our school community, and it did provide a great think tank and an open forum for generating ideas, answering questions, and a process that we hope to continue to use in the future. From a facility standpoint, I'd like to again thank the town for including us in the LED lighting upgrade. I know that's going to be undertaken very soon. Also like to let you know that phase 2 of the HVAC work that you approved last year was completed over the December break. We're glad to know that. Our vendor still needs to address a few minor items such as exhaust systems in some of the older wings of the school. Again, thanks for your support of this project, which we know has already made improvements in the overall environment and feel of the building. Our timeline for the hiring process of a permanent principal for Beecher continues to move along. The position has been widely advertised and an application deadline of January 24th. Just briefly in the area of cybersecurity, which is an area that I'm sure most of us are thinking about, Beecher is taking extra precautions this week and in the weeks ahead, given some of the recent news that we have heard through the media. We'd like to thank our amazing PTO for the welcome back breakfast last Friday that greeted our staff as they entered the building. The PTO is making preparations for their second annual Fun Run fundraiser, and we appreciate all that they do for us. And finally, I had the opportunity to attend and judge a student-made or student-run gingerbread house activity at yesterday's first annual gingerbread house decorating contest. This was a joint after-school activity between our student council and students from Amity's Leo's Club, which some of you may be familiar with, the Lions Club Junior Partners. And this is another great example of the collaboration that goes on between Beecher and Amity, and also supported by our terrific staff and parents. That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Bob? Thank you.
Based on what you're projecting, it certainly must have been a challenge. So thank you for that.
It's always a challenge, and we'll be glad. We'll be looking forward to bringing some of those details to you, how that all played out. But thank you for that. Yes.
Can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
So we got at our desks a letter that went to you from QBHD with some remediation issues. So does the facilities?
So the facilities subcommittee, which actually meets this Friday morning, does address something like that.
Okay.
And yes, in fact, so it's sort of hot off the press. We haven't actually had a chance to completely
Yeah.
look at that. There are some things there that may appear to jump off the page, but things that I think may not be as extreme as
it might come
sound.
across.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, because if that was the case, John Ladano would have picked up the phone and called me, actually.
Okay.
And
All right, that's good.
yeah,
All right, thank you, Bob.
you're welcome.
Excuse me, just one more. I know a number of folks have approached me and asked me about like where Beecher stands with different school systems within Connecticut. And I haven't been in a position to really respond to them on that. I've been meaning to call you, and I haven't. And I apologize for that.
Sure.
But I was hoping maybe one of your next few meetings we might be able to get into a little bit of that.
Absolutely. So, and part of the budget process or budget presentation will include student achievement data and things like that. I do want to say that we're very proud of how our students have been performing. And I'll just take a snapshot, and I'll elaborate a little bit more at the budget. But our students, in terms of our science achievement, on the first time this test has been given throughout the state, we were in the upper, I think, 5% of the state in terms of our fifth grade scores. Our Smarter Balance language, arts, and math scores this past year have showed great growth from the previous year. We're in the top 10% in the state, and again, the typical districts that may be a little bit ahead of us, and it may be the towns in Fairfield County or some of the other towns that are in our district reference group. So we're very proud of that, and I'll be glad to be bringing that to you.
Thank you.
During the budget process.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Item 3 on the agenda is the first Selectmen's Report. Since our last meeting, I've thought a lot about public comment. It is each board or commission's chair's prerogative to set parameters for public comment. Going forward, I plan to, and invite you also, to feel free to respond briefly to any comments that you feel are either factually incorrect or of a personal attack to any of us. Public comment should be an outlet for residents to share their ideas or concerns, but not a place to extended dialogue. It's not an opportunity to misrepresent facts, intentionally or not, and it is not a platform for accusations. I have and will continue to remind everyone that we are all Woodbridge residents, and that we must endeavor to listen and be respectful of each other at all times. My door is always open to residents, and anyone with questions is welcome to visit, phone, or email me at any time. I had hoped to ask your approval to schedule the dates for the special town meeting and referendum for the sale of a portion of the former Country Club of Woodbridge tonight. However, we are awaiting the finalized contract. Back in October, the board agreed to put off the meeting and vote until put off the contract and vote until the contract was finalized so that the public could view it before making any final decisions. I'm proud of that decision, as voters will be able to make a more informed decision. However, as we'll hear later from Attorney Weiner in executive session, I believe that we are close to finalizing the contract. As a reminder, the current proposal is for the town to sell approximately 60 of the 155 acres for $5.4 million for construction by Insight Warner of no more than 120 units of freestanding active adult housing. After completion of all units, the town will realize approximately $1.2 million in tax revenue every year from the residents who purchase these homes, plus additional tax revenue from personal property. The town will retain approximately 95 acres, and we have set aside funding for a landscaped architect, land use analyst, to advise us on the best passive recreational uses for the undeveloped land that the town will retain. After the referendum on the property, I plan to establish an ad hoc committee of residents who will work with the consultant on the design to optimize the property as an important town asset. I think we all agree that we must reduce our mill rate and bring relief to taxpayers. I also think we all know that the town has few opportunities to grow much-needed revenue. Our debt on the property is not due to be paid off for another 12 years. With the sale, we will pay off the debt on this property, saving $500,000 annually in principal and interest payments, and also retain $1.4 million, I always get that wrong, for other needed projects. As I have stated so many times before, I am voting in favor of scheduling the referendum because I believe this is an important matter for the voters to decide. This month, we are saying goodbye to Human Services Director Mary Ellen LaRocca, who is retiring after 31 years of service to the town. In that time, she has helped countless numbers of Woodbridge residents through some of their darkest times. She is the backup system to our most vulnerable young and old residents. Tony and I are working together with the Human Services Commission to fill the Human Services Director position. I plan to be at her retirement dinner and will make remarks on behalf of the Board of Selectmen tomorrow evening. Her last day is January 17th. Also, I'd like to remind you of an upcoming event. Team Incorporated is holding a housing forum in Seymour on January 16th. You should have received an email from Betsy Yagla. Soon we will hear from Betsy Quist about revaluation and how our property values are changing. Woodbridge is uniquely reliant on residential real estate, and the majority of our homes are large single-family homes. In order to ensure our economic future as a town, I believe we need to understand the housing market and its needs. This event is an excellent opportunity to understand housing issues and how some towns are responding. Since our last board meeting, I attended the town's annual employee holiday luncheon. I put on my Mrs. Claus costume and delivered Christmas toys along with Santa and members of the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association. In addition to meetings with several individual residents, I had a meeting with a larger group regarding their wish to have the fitness center remain in town and relocated at the old Firehouse. Their petition is in your packet. Lastly, I was proud to attend another Eagle Scout Court of Honor on Sunday, December 29th. Felix Liu and Jason Luciani both were given this honor for wonderful projects that benefited our town. I presented them both with citations on behalf of the board and our residents. And with that, we'll move to item 4, discussion and update regarding the Darling House Koan Farms. And I would first like to recognize Chris Sorensen, who was asked to do a short presentation to the board. Thank you. Just do me a favor and introduce your name, and we all know you, but name and address for the record. Thank you, Chris.
I'm Chris Sorensen at 410 Amity Road. Our farm is Mary Mountain Farm at 420 Amity Road. And what we're discussing today is 1910 Litchfield Turnpike. My family has farmed and paid taxes in the town of Woodbridge for over 100 years.
Across the street.
Across the street. Okay.
It'll become relevant as we get into the whole where we are now. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. I was born and raised in Woodbridge and I have a vested interest in our town now and moving forward. The piece of property at 1910 Litchfield Turnpike has been farmed in many capacities. It has been farmed by Fred Shepard, and when he passed away, I acquired it in 2005 to continue the farming, and I agreed to brush hog the town's portion of the Meese property as well. That was part of the deal, which I've done. I have never had a complaint from the town, and I feel I have enhanced the property and been a good steward to the land. A few days ago, I was informed that there was a plan for this property and that Ethan Schneider would be farming it. This disturbed me, being left out of the loop. After I have spent thousands of dollars on land improvements and purchase of material for this coming season, which begins in less than 90 days. I feel the Historical Society just wants to push their issues to someone else by spending thousands of dollars to install a well, electricity, and fencing. I have not asked the town for 1 cent, So my question is, if they do this for this individual, does this send a precedent that the town will help all farmers? Having been the chairman of the Public Works Garage, I know firsthand how things take time, and to move someone in 90 days, which took years to build, let alone he is a single-handed individual, is a tall task. There is a financial responsibility on the town's part to oversee individuals to contractually farm parcels of town-owned land. I have always said haste makes waste, and that is something the town can ill afford at this present time. I've spoken to some of the people here today in this room about how I feel and the need to form the Agricultural Commission. So in the future, everyone is better informed on what is going on within the town. I feel there are better solutions to handle the situation, and they should be discussed and looked at before any decision is made to move anybody, anywhere, at this present time. This year, with the season so close, the farmers should farm where existing parcels that they have farmed over the years and form the Agricultural Commission and put this as one of its first tasks. I want to thank you for letting me speak here today, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Anyone have any questions at this point? Or you're going to be here for a little while?
I'm going to be here. I'm going to spend.
Okay.
I'm going to be here.
I think after we, right, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's
Thank
fine.
you. Stick
Thank you.
around, okay. I just want to thank everyone who's, at this point, worked very hard on trying to come to resolution. I personally have felt that it's important that we try to find a solution that satisfies both farming and the Darling House collection needs. And we'll see what happens. We're just going to hear some more from a couple more people, and then we can have a discussion as a board as to how to go forward. So with that, I would invite Koan Farm representatives first to come on up. And are you going to present? Yep. Okay. I'm not sure where we are. They've been talking, and I think each side has an idea as to what they need. And they'd like an opportunity to present to the entire board rather than just talking with me and other people at this point. And it's important you introduce yourselves, names and address, please. Thanks.
I'm Dick Blackwell. I moved to Woodbridge about 4 years ago. I was in Milford, and I have 5 grandchildren that live, and that's why I moved to Woodbridge. They're all within 10 minutes, and I've got all 4 of my grown children live nearby also. I was in Milford, and I retired. I was a farmer. I had a hydroponic sprout farm in Bridgeport, believe it or not. It was an indoor sprout farm, grew about 20,000 pounds of sprouts, certified organic, every week. Alfalfa, clover, radish, broccoli, dill, and wheatgrass. And I had trucks. We shipped it up to Maine, to Hannaford, all the way down to Baltimore. And I joined the Historical Society last year, and I got a family membership and took my family there. And Alexia was nice enough to give a tour, gave her a call. And I grew up in Alabama. We didn't have anything before the Civil War in Alabama, you know. So, I mean, to see something from the 18th century is a big deal to me. And to have this in Woodbridge where I live, you know, it's a big deal. So anyway, we had this great tour, and then at the end of the tour, I said, "What's that across the street?" And they said, "Well, that's the barn, and it's with the original house. It was 1770. I said, "Can I go in it? Can I look at it?" They said, "Well, you can peek through the window." And so, but what's in the barn? Well, the barn had a schoolhouse in it, a one-room schoolhouse that apparently, I guess, was from the south side of Woodbridge, had been disassembled. Anyway, to make a long story short, I found out that the schoolhouse is not salvageable, that it was cut up into pieces, that it's going to be very difficult to ever put it back together again. And then Paul DeCoster said there hadn't been any takers to take the schoolhouse. In the meantime, it's rotting inside the barn. So Leland Torrance, he and we walked the land the other day, about 2 days ago, and he said it's structurally sound, and that it could be, he and Ethan are willing to take the junk out of the barn. Ethan said, and also Leland said, there are a lot of artifacts, farm implements from the 18th century and the early 19th century, which go with the house. And I'm willing to, and Leland said it's about $6,500 to do the work to make it sound, so it can last for a long term. And I said I'd be willing to pony up to $6,500. I'd be happy to do that. I'd love to do that, to get the barn so people can go in. The question is, what kind of implements are in there? I mean, there's a big foot locker in there. It looks ancient. God knows what's in it, and everything's rotting in there. And to me, it's a travesty. We need to, I love the town of Woodbridge, the heritage, and it's, as a citizen, I want to try to restore that barn, to get that barn going. It's part of the original house, to restore it. So anyway, that's number one. I'd like to do whatever I can. I'll spend the money to get it up to speed. The other thing is, I'm very impressed with Ethan. I had a certified organic farm, and then what he's done with his farmland is amazing. With a little bit of, I think he's got 3/4 of an acre. He's a purist. I mean, he does everything organically, and his product is beautiful. And what I'd like to do, I think, is separate the farm from the historic, from the house, and do what I can to help him get certified organic status, which would help, I think, open opportunities. Right now, he can't get certified organic because he's on the property where the Darling House is has lead paint, and the certified organic people won't allow him to get a certification. But what he's doing with the CSA, people that, I guess they pay a membership fee, I love, and he could expand that. So we were looking at farm property across the street, the 4 acres, and that's what Chris referred to. And that's Chris's property. But there are other options available. And the question is, Ethan lives in that house, in the cottage right now, the caretaker's cottage. And if he were to relocate, and this is something I talked to Paul about, if he were to relocate out of there, he would have to continue farming. He would have to continue to have access to the utilities. And apparently that's within the cottage. So if he were to relocate, and I talked to Paul this afternoon about it, they would have to put some kind of access to water and electric. So, and he would have to continue, because there is no additional farming opportunity this year for him. He would have to stay farming there. So, there's an issue about, does he live there or doesn't he? But he's got to have access to the utilities. So I think that can be worked out. So anyway, I agree with what Chris said about the Agriculture Commission. I think it'd be a great idea to coordinate things, to look at different. Chris showed me a couple of properties today that could offer farming that I think would be terrific to consider, to add to the farm, the actual tillable acreage. And what else do I say? I mean.
Okay. Ethan, did you want to speak at all?
But I love the
This is sort
town.
of our first opportunity to hear from everyone.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go
No.
ahead.
Thank you so much. My name's Ethan Schneider. I live at, 1907 Litchfield Turnpike. And I just want to take the opportunity to give a little bit of background on the work we've been doing. Jeez Louise. The work that we've been doing over the last couple of weeks as to try and find an amicable solution to the problem. So we have invested a substantial amount of time, myself, Jim Urbano, Mr. Blackwell, have Paul DeCoster, Mary Dean, Don Menzies. There have been a number of us individuals who have been working very dedicated to find a solution to this problem. We all understand that it needs to culminate to something, and it needs to happen quickly, because this is not a sustainable it's not good for anybody to continue to live in this limbo. With some questions from the appropriate people, I was asked what is needed to farm land. And so if you were to do something that, say, Chris Sorensen, who's been farming farms tons of land, open land in around. He doesn't need irrigation and power as he grows, larger crop and tractor crops. So that could be hay, corn, squash, large bulk items. The produce that I produce is on a much smaller, hand-picked, hand-harvested scale and requires a little bit more infrastructure. That infrastructure includes electricity, so that I can run greenhouses. Greenhouses need fans and heat, as well as a proper water source so that I can irrigate my fields. Depending on rain, it doesn't work for the small scale farms, and it most certainly doesn't work inside of a greenhouse because, well, it doesn't rain in a greenhouse. So you need irrigation for that. So water, power. There needs to be some type of, as it is a full-time position where I would need hired hands to help me or volunteers to help me, and we would be there for 8 to 12 hours on a day. You need some type of shelter space. If in the middle of the day there is a lightning storm, there needs to be a safe place for these people to go. There needs to be a shelter available on the property. Deer fencing as well, which is something that I have already. I have a substantial amount of deer fencing already. And as a long-term plan, a residence needs to be put on said property. That is why I accepted the opportunity that I'm currently at. The reason I accepted my role at the Darling House was because of the proximity, the direct adjacence from the caretaker's cottage to the lands. I would have seriously reconsidered my decision if I was under the impression that that was not going to be the case 4 years ago when I started farming at the Darling House. I also just wanted to say to Chris that I apologize for me personally for not having gotten in touch and kept him more in the loop. I felt that putting together at least, to me it was a chicken and the egg situation. We needed a legitimate plan that worked, that was potentially implementable before we went and presented too many ideas and stirred up too much more confusion. All in all, the plan that we worked on for the last month or so failed. There's no way for the 2020 season for me to farm the land across the street. And so we sit here today, unfortunately, not for the lack of work that's been done by volunteers, individuals, and people who are passionate about solving this problem, but because there was another speed bump in the road. And it appeared, as Chris said, the farm season starts in 90 days. If I'm going to be farming for this season, I need to start putting in place infrastructure and ordering seeds and selling CSA shares and doing all of the necessary things that, as we hope that you will approve an ag commission, something that could help facilitate making sure that long-term leases exist for farmers so that they can commit the year before to the next season. It takes an immense amount of work and money and involvement to farm land, and it is not a profitable business. I just want to make that very clear. I'm not sure if everyone realizes it, but there is no profit-rearing machine that is an organic vegetable farm. I have never paid myself a salary. I've never paid myself an hourly wage. I don't know many farmers who live and are saving for retirement because of what they do. It's a labor of love, and it's a labor of land, and it's about land stewardship and community. And I know that does not present an answer to the issue that we are searching for, but I want everyone to know that we are searching for a solution that meets the needs of, I do not believe I'm representing anything that is not that is out of the wheelhouse for any farmer. These are situations that any farmer would need on my scale to continue farming. As you said, if you want to hay land, you can hay land, and that's not a difficult. It's not a difficult process. Sorry, don't want to say that. That does not require as much infrastructure, but produce farming and what we'll call the cultural wave that we are seeing in not only New England, but across the country and internationally, about small-scale farmers providing food to their community in order to create a healthy lifestyle and create a better lifestyle for our communities requires housing, power, necessary water capacity, and the ability to run a modern farm that, whether that's, small tractors or the way I do it, which is everything by hand. It requires occultation, which is the use of plastic. It requires high tunnels and greenhouses. It is a much more involved program. As any of you could go to Massaro right now and see what the amazing job that they're doing, providing food and education. Obviously, their focus is much more on the community building and teaching farmers, and less on the direct marketing of produce. And though obviously that is a big part of what they do, their focus is on education and building farmers, keep farming, build community. That's what they do. And the town, I believe the support that I've received from dozens of community members, as well as the people who have dedicated their time to help find a space for an organic farm, believe that not only will it help the community, but it's an incredible asset, and we need to find a solution, and we need to keep working towards a solution, or unfortunately, I don't feel my business will not survive. And I don't have any other. There's no other options in this area that provide what I currently have or what we are working towards. And I fear for the life of small organic farming if we don't do something about making changes and creating a plan that works, that has the things that I mentioned. A long-term, I have flexibility. I believe, not living on the property would be massively difficult, but I know that I can overcome issues if I need to overcome them, as long as the long-term plan fits with a viable business model and a sustainable business model. Thank you for listening.
Does anyone have any questions? You don't want to wait?
Yeah, well, wait, what are we
Okay.
waiting for?
The third presenter.
The next
Yes.
the next group.
It's up to you guys.
No,
Okay.
wait.
So hang out.
Yeah.
Thank you. Stay in the room. Thank you. Okay, and I believe representatives of the Historical Society like to come up.
Mr. Woodbridge, Country Club property, adjourning. General property.
Not at this point. Good evening. Name and address. Thank you.
Mary Dean, 8 Mulberry Road, the Vice President of the Amity-Woodbridge Historical Society. In fact, I don't know whether you really want to have me speak at this point, because I'm not speaking about farming at all. It has really nothing to do with the Historical Society. As you know, we've said many, many times, we support farming. We support farming on our land. I'm sorry, I have a terrible cold. Does this microphone not work well?
Everyone in the world has a cold.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll shout into it.
There we go. Yeah,
Okay. Can you hear me now?
much better.
Yeah. For us, we have presented here to you all many times what the issues were for us and what specifically we need to have the Board of Selectmen do for us. And so I won't repeat all of those things. I just came tonight by invitation to give you a report and take any questions from you on the subject of what's going on around now and what we're doing. I'm very happy to do that. Unfortunately, some of those who should be here to help provide real expertise and answers to some of the questions I might think you would have about our programs and so forth are not able to attend. That includes our president, Alexia Belperon, who is the driver behind so much of our grant writing and program execution, and also our former president, Don Menzies, whose historical knowledge is so great. Both of them are out of town today. But we'll do our best. We have other people here too. If you have any questions, to answer all those questions, and we can promise to provide responses later if there's anything to which we do not have information tonight. I myself want to report specifically about the work on the production of a new agreement between the town and the Amity-Woodbridge Historical Society for the use, management, and preservation of the Darling House site. As you may remember, the Board of Selectmen voted in November to direct the town attorney to work with the Society's attorney to craft this document. There have been some predictable and some less predictable delays in that project, but our draft should be ready for submission and discussion shortly. And I'm happy to give you a quick précis of what to expect when it comes to you for approval. First, why is a new agreement needed? If you read the current one, it seems to cover all the bases, and with minor updates, it has served us for 45 years. However, we can and must improve it in some specific ways. We must make sure, going forward, that it is clear with the responsibilities and authority of both the town and the society better and more consistently articulated. When we do this, future users will have the guidance they need for a smooth working partnership, ensuring the highest and best use of the Darling House property. It doesn't require a major rewrite. And in the interest of time, we're keeping as close to the current document in presentation and text as we can. But it does involve more than cleaning up the syntax. And we're taking the time and care to present the best draft we can for your discussion and approval. Let me mention one other thing you will see in the new draft. The spheres of historic preservation, museum operations, and other relevant interests have become much more professional since 1974. And we're suggesting some of their up-to-date recommendations for the new document, particularly guidance from our partner, the State Historic Preservation Office. So look for that. A working, long-term agreement with the town for use, management, and preservation of the Darling House site is essential for any work or presentations by the society there. If the new agreement can be signed quickly, we can be again eligible for and can accept the Good to Great grant, and that would be the first thing we can and will do. But there are other plans put on hold since last summer, such as restoration grant applications for the historic barns. We are all talking about one thing in common, aren't we? So please expedite the signing of the new agreement. We need to get back to work at the Darling House and for the Darling House and the town of Woodbridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to speak, Paul? There you go.
Paul DeCoster, 464 Amity Road. I'm a member of the Historical Society. I'm also very interested in the Agriculture Commission. I'd like to see it put into effect. We've had a problem that, as Ethan has said, relating to the issue of farming at the Darling House. And I think the Society has come to the conclusion that we would like to get away from that business. And Ethan alluded to all the work that's been done. The work that's been done has been to figure out a possible plan for satisfying everybody's concerns. And I tried to send this to Sandy Stein this afternoon, and I tried 5 times, and I finally found out that I had the wrong email address. So I now have the right email address. I sent it to her, and I have copies of the proposal, which I can pass out to you, and you can take a look at them, and we'd be happy to answer any questions on it. I've sent this proposal to Dick Blackwell, and I'm sure he's discussed it with Ethan, and they, I think, have been in general agreement with it. We now have a situation where they are looking at other properties, and that's perfectly okay with us. We don't mind farming. We don't want to have to worry about the farmer. But if he's doing his own thing someplace else, or even across the street, that'd be fine. And this proposal talks about moving him across the street. So let me pass this out, and then we can answer whatever questions you have. And obviously, a lot of this depends upon what Ethan wants to do, whether he wants to try to farm there or not. That decision he will have to make, I think, pretty quickly, although I think Chris needs to work on the land this year because he's committed to it. And then we have to see where that goes from that point on. So here are a number of them. In fact, we could probably paper the walls with them here.
You can hand it to
There is five pages, which took
Heavens,
2
is this
weeks.
the latest? Okay.
Thank you.
You know what, I can take them and we'll just shoot them down
Oh,
for you.
look, here.
Make it easier for you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Does any,
We can answer questions you got.
okay, so I think at this point, I have just received this, obviously. Sandy, do you want to give a little bit of history as to how we got here for some, Sandy's been working
Well, I think
with
that-
both groups to try to, and we've been back and
Mika
forth.
also with
What?
us, Mika also.
Mika too, yep.
And in terms of really wanting to find a solution to the issue.
You might want to pile up to the mic there a little, yeah. There you go.
And I think the question is, how do we continue an organic farming operation that's been started and there's been some investment, into the land at the Darling House, and yet resolve the issue of who actually is in the caretaker's apartment and who, what role does that person play in terms of the Darling House property itself, running of the museum, and working with the Historical Society. So there are many, many different options that have been explored. And I think that there is a desire to separate the farming from the Darling House and the Historical Society, so that those are two independent operations. And the issue that really has come up, Ethan explained what is needed actually to move his operation someplace else. The question is, where is their land available? And originally, the land was looked at across the street because that is kind of the most convenient. And as Mr. Blackwell stated, there is a barn there that could be restored. It could all be part of one big project. Chris Sorensen has been farming that land for, is it 18 years, Chris? Right. And he has, plans for that for this year and has committed the sale of the crops that he grows there. So moving the farm across the street for this coming year is not a practical solution. So the question is there other land in Woodbridge that could become Koan Farms? Is there other, land that the town has as farmland or not? And I think we don't know the answer to that question yet, but I feel that there is great value in terms of having Ethan continue with Koan Farms. And there is great value in terms of the Historical Society being able to get back to their work at the Darling House Museum. I will say also, in terms of all the involvement in this, I think there really is a need for there to be increased collaboration with the town, both from the Historical Society perspective, also in terms of having an ag commission that would really address some of the farming issues that have arisen. And I think whatever agreements we come up with, we need to make sure that we are partners with whatever groups are moving forward. And I think that the best solutions will come from that. And there will be broader support and endorsement of the plans that we come up with.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone want to go next, or questions for each of the groups? Things we don't
I
understand?
have two questions. Did we have a committee of the board established to negotiate with the folks?
Do we?
Did we? Did
No.
we?
No. We're just asking, we've been,
No one's done any negotiation.
no, just trying to get ideas
Certainly
put
sounds
forward.
like it, but-
No, just
No,
put
no, no.
So
ideas.
it wasn't a committee?
No,
before,
no,
just-
no.
just
No.
Someone said Sandy and Mika go talk to the folks.
No, I
No,
didn't
no,
say
no.
that. They offered and said,
We offered to do
And
that.
actually, we were approached by some of the members and asked to.
I mean, my question's obvious, because we're a board of 6 here. We're not a board of 2.
So it started, Joe, when we had our tour of the
I
Darling
know when it
House.
started, and
Okay.
Beth couldn't make it.
Right, and
I
you
talked
were
to
away
I was
also.
away,
So
and
that's
that's
when
fine.
it started.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just suggesting it's probably not a great process moving forward, that we have 2 folks on a group, a board of 6, that interact that well with trying to negotiate between parties, that's all. I'm not gonna make a big deal
Okay.
about
Okay,
this.
you have to understand though, Joe, we're not negotiating. We're trying to find a solution.
Mediating, whatever you're
Okay.
doing, you're interacting with them
Right?
on behalf of this.
No.
No.
Well, as what then?
As members of the
As-
community.
As members of the community
also as
wanting
people.
to try to resolve this
Just
issue.
citizens.
In other words, for example.
Yes, I'm not
some of-
representing
some
the
of
Board of
people-
Selectmen on that.
Oh, that's
Some
what I
of the folks
misunderstood.
No, not at
But
all.
it seems kind of strange that we would have 2 board of selectmen
Joe,
mediating
it's,
with them on their own.
I understand your point, and it's a point well made.
You can
It's
be
something that
sliced
we
and
can-
diced any way
any
you
way we
want. I
want.
made the point, that's fine.
So,
My other question would be, is there an agreement to this proposal?
no,
And if not, where does it fall short, and what are the prospects of bringing it together? Because that's really what I think what is happening here. The 2 parties are discussing a resolution, and the 2 lawyers are now seem to be out of it. Is that accurate to say?
I've been out of it. I don't
Right.
even know.
So-
I heard briefly what the potential resolution was this afternoon, and that was that Ethan would stay at the move out of the apartment if he found suitable alternative place to live,
Stay.
and stay at the farm where he's
Right.
farming now for a year until
another year.
alternate arrangements can be made either across the street or perhaps even someplace else. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's
Well,
going
that's
anywhere.
what's in here.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get the, because
I
a
didn't-
month ago, the 2 lawyers were back and forth, et cetera, and now it looks like the 2 parties.
I think Jerry
in
reached out to Dwight several times and didn't hear back. Is that correct?
That's correct, but I
Right.
did hear back from him last week, and he said
Relative to the
he
agreement.
said he was preparing an
The-
agreement
the,
to
uh,
get back to
Separate
it.
with the town.
That's it.
I understand
Right.
that. That's-
Not you.
But now if it's in, if the parties are talking together and negotiating out a resolution, that's fine, it happens all the time. But I think we heard positions, but I don't know, I haven't heard where we are in terms of.
This is as far as we are. We've heard tonight from one side and the other side as to what they need and what they would like. And now it's up to us to decide how can we put that
Well,
together
Well,
and
but this
figure out, can we
proposal's-
work this out?
but
This
this
is just one, but Ethan has a different,
This is from the historic.
No, I understand that, but from what I understand, it's been put together from conversations that they've been having, that's what the folks said.
That is.
So does Ethan have a written proposal that may or may differ from this, or?
Ethan, have you
Do we have
you've
his
seen this?
position with respect to this?
Sure.
Because Joe just said that the plan that you have in front of you is from the Historical Society. The Historical Society's interest in this, as you've heard many times, is confined to the historic site, to the Darling House site. The matter of the repossession of the caretaker's cottage so that we can have our caretaker back again, and the reinstatement of the agreement between the town and the Historical Society. We support farming, and we've been helping, and particularly Paul, as you can see, has worked very hard to support those who are working to find another farming solution and to think about farming issues in town. That is not part of the Historical Society's mission. we have enough to do without worrying about farming. And we're very happy to support. I think I speak for myself, but of course I'm sure I think for many people when I say we support the idea of a farming commission to be a focus point and a driver for farming in town. But it's nothing to do with us. If we have frequently said that in the past that the farming operations on what is the Darling House site can continue to happen as long as they don't negatively impact the work of the museum or the historic character of the site. The concern there is repossessing authority over the caretaker cottage itself, which is part of the museum. Okay, is that clear? And we're not financially supporting,
Not
as
really
an
at all,
institution, we're not financially supporting.
I understand that, except this, then what is this proposal?
It just came.
From whom?
Paul and the Historical Society,
Paul.
correct?
Well, but
And
now,
Jim.
now Mary's saying it's not from the historic.
You know, you can have more than one hat in this town, as I think you know. And I
Well,
appreciate the
I'm not
confusion.
necessarily against
And
it,
we
I'm
do-
trying to understand what
Yeah.
this is.
The signers, it's not signed, are Paul, Don Menzies, and you.
Yes, Paul was kind enough to put our name down
Oh,
there.
by your- is this
to
on
indicate
behalf of the
amount of
society,
work that
or-
we've all done talking about this and working.
Where it's from. It's a proposal for us to work toward a resolution of the issue.
Yeah, and I think, did you not hear basically the same thing from Ethan and from Paul?
I
So
haven't
that may
read
be
it.
the source of the confusion you're getting.
Right,
at.
I haven't read it
I don't know,
completely,
it's not
Mary,
me.
so I don't know.
I just want to make
all-
sure that you understand what the
The efforts
Historical
of-
Society's focus is.
There's been a number of people in the community who have tried to step up to resolve the issues that are
And
going on.
we're very grateful to them.
Some of them are advocates for farming, some of them are advocates for the Darling House. The issue, and I think it's always been the issue, is the occupation of the apartment. And so that is what we were trying to see. In order to maintain the farm, you needed the farmer to be near that farm as close as possible, most effectively on the farm. So that's the reason that we were looking at different properties or different places in that area, since that's where it was farming. So I haven't seen, I haven't read this. I know I've been engaged with some of the people who were involved in this in terms of, so I suspect I have an idea what's here, but there are a couple of questions that come up. For example, and I don't know if it's contained in here, is Ethan able to farm and utilize the resources that he requires if he's not living in the apartment?
We have always, since the very beginning of this, assumed that.
No, but I'm saying the big key to me is the resources that he requires. So does he have access to the water? Does he have access to the electricity?
Could he stay for another year perhaps on this property and continue the farming till we resolve this
It
further?
would be my expectation, not knowing, because we haven't had a conversation about these things. We haven't had a productive conversation. He has discussed with representatives of the Historical Society what additional resources he would need on the site in order to farm if he was not living in the cottage. So conversations like that have taken place, but not with me, so I can't
Okay,
represent
but
them.
if we could come up with the things that he would need, utilities and shed and et cetera, shelter of some kind, separate from the Historical Society, but access to from the Darling House, are you comfortable, as a society, comfortable having him maintain his farm there?
It's not necessarily something you need to answer, right? I'm sorry.
Right, no,
I don't
it's
need to
okay.
answer,
I just
But
figured-
it's more, that's a big
With
component
his
of.
not being in the caretaker's apartment, but continuing to farm at least for another year, so that he's got, or season, or whatever it is, so that he's got an opportunity to continue to look. In other words, we press the pause button a little bit and get him something that would satisfy his needs for certified organic farming going forward.
I think that there would be no problem with the society doing that. no.
Okay,
And to,
that when this first started, that was our estimate, our
Right.
expectation from the beginning,
and I do recall.
Okay.
The
issue became the caretaker's apartment again, right, right,
To
okay.
bring this into clear focus for myself, Joe, in terms of what your comments were as relates to the plans coming together and talking and committees and things of that nature. So far up until this point, there's been conversation. There's not, and research, if you will. So somebody mentioned the farm across, or the potential to farm across the street. It's like, well, you gotta have water, you gotta have shelter. Who's gonna do that? Is a variance needed? What's required? So that's where resources here were needed and I think appreciated in terms of being able to direct. At this point, it seems as if the parties involved are coming to some kind of a agreement, if you will. And I think this is our opportunity to present, as a board, to understand it. So this is the first real formal proposal that's been presented, if you will, in terms of here's what the potential is. And then,
But that's why I asked where it came from, because that has a lot of relevance here. Where it comes from is relevant. In other words, this was presented from the society. My understanding, after discussions. And if
No.
it's not the society, who is it?
Who is it? Well,
Because if it's just three
Paul,
people
wait a
in
minute.
town, then I don't know what are we dealing
well,
with.
we've got two people who are in the society who are saying different things.
And
so-
if Ethan doesn't agree with this, or they can't tie it all together and come to an agreement, then what do we?
Well, this says, number one, move the farming operations
I
across the
read
street.
it. I know what it says, and
Right,
people are
that's-
donating money
That's
to.
cannot happen, so, right,
Well, it
It's
can't
an-
happen this year.
right,
This year.
correct,
I
right.
I think
I'm
I-
sorry.
It's an ad hoc group of people who do probably not have all been in the same room at the same time.
Okay.
And you know, there's names of them, the people on that sheet have all been in the same room at the same time together with others. That's what I would say. Would you say that, Paul? It's an ad hoc committee.
I would say it's an ad hoc committee of the directors. And I think we have operated on our own to try to make a presentation a solution that you see there. It's our work product. We've worked obviously with Ethan and with Dick Blackwell and others to get to start to work on some of these solutions. For example, if Ethan wants to go across the street, I don't know whether he does or not. He's looking at that, and he's got a year to figure that out, I guess. Then we have put together the money to do the improvements. Mr. Blackwell has put up 10 grand, and I will put up 10 grand, and that will be in honor of the society. The society isn't doing that; we're doing it. And we're doing it because we want the society to get back what it wants, which is it wants control of the operation of the museum, and it wants its caretaker living in the museum, which is what has happened for the last 45 years.
So we're trying to, I think this is an opportunity for us, since all the parties are here, or most of the parties, or at least the parties are represented, to ask the questions so that we can determine what's going on. So, for example, I have a question for Chris. In a year from now, I know that you have the property and you have plans for it this year. Next year, are you in the same position, or are you?
No, I'm not committed, and I'm willing, that's why I said, to have an agricultural commission and have a plan that we can sit and talk about, I think is great. There's things that I think, I've talked with, you even mentioned to Beth here, is we sign a contract usually in February, which is late in the year. We should be signing a contract in October or November. I mean, those are little things that we need to start changing.
We should change that,
But
right,
these are things that.
for the farmers, yeah.
But these are things we need to sit down and
Right.
have as a committee and sit down and discuss this. There's a lot of things here that have been brought out into the open,
Yep.
and it's affecting people in many different ways. I'm not here to try to be difficult or try to be any of that, but when you're being a good steward of any land, you assume that you're gonna get the contract the next year because you don't have any written complaints or anything like that against you. So when something comes about and you don't see a plan or you don't see something, it sort of shocks everybody. And also you have to say, well, if you had an ag commission, it would have gone in front of the commission, it would have been looked at, it would have been brought to the selectmen would have been aware of it, everybody would have been knowing what's going on in town. And then we could have a transition into this new and part of what we're gonna do is transition. I think that's the way we have to look at it. We have to transition. You just things can't happen like that with a snap of our fingers. It just doesn't work, and then it just becomes chaos, and everybody's, say, well, this person didn't show, or this person didn't do that. So I think we just need to move forward. We can move forward, but we have to move forward in a way that can satisfy everybody. And it might take a little bit more time than some people might like, but I think we're on the right track if we keep moving forward and forming the commissioners.
So if I can, I just had a question. I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, I'll go ahead.
Please.
You know, just two things. There's no place for this year for Ethan to farm except where he is right now. We're not going to get any more land anywhere else right now. Across the street is out of the question. So he has to have access to that farm to continue to do what he's been doing. And then, like Chris said, we're going to work on other locations to farm. But in the meantime, he's got to get access to utilities. There's no option. I mean, as far as discontinuing farming, but in the long run, we'll get him off the property. But the other thing is that I wanted to point out is I don't think the barn has to be part of this whole big farming issue. I mean, the barn, in my opinion, we should do something about the barn now, and not get it all convoluted with all this other stuff. I mean, we need to, everybody seems to agree to clear out the junk. And I'll pay for the renovation, and Leland said about $6,500, right? That's about what you said?
To stabilize.
Yeah, to stabilize, all right. But we want to see what's in there.
Going back now to Ethan, in the past, it's always been the contention that you needed to be at the property. Now we're suggesting that you not be on the property and that you farm from somewhere nearby. And that's, at least that's what I'm understanding.
For the short term.
And the short term being as long as a year, apparently, for this season, if you will. But anyway, so.
Well, if he's leaving, well, maybe it's not short term, but I'm talking about this growing season. Staying at the Darling House,
But Mika's
farming.
talking about separating.
Transition, what I'm saying is, like, the proposal, as I understand it, is for him to farm the existing property where he's got his farm now.
Right.
Whereas potentially next year being, in this case, being considered short-term,
It's gonna be somewhere else.
he could be somewhere
And
else.
he's gonna be living somewhere else.
And whatever the case
That's
may
why
be
it's not
from that,
short-term.
from that
No, he's not going to be
perspective.
living on the Darling property.
That's right.
Either way,
So-
if it's
Getting
acceptable.
back to my question is, are you,
Okay, go ahead, Ethan. You should probably come up to the mic for the television audience. Sorry.
if I'm understanding what's being proposed, you're okay with moving out in the near term from where you are to someplace else close by that you will be in and be able to farm the property that you have been farming for the last 4 years?
So just to clear some things up. One, that was presented to me this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So I have not had a chance to properly think about that idea. Never have I been presented with the idea, never have I ventured the idea to leave the caretaker's apartment and then continue to farm that land. There are a few issues inherently. One, the power, the breakers, there is a minimal power in that house anyways, and the breakers are in the caretaker's apartment. So I would need access to the interior of the caretaker's apartment in order to, if I run a saw to cut a piece of wood and the breaker blows, I need to be able to turn that back on as it controls my refrigeration and the shelf stability of my produce. Secondly, there is not enough water pressure on that property for me to irrigate and someone to even wash their hands inside. So there would need to be, that creates a very, very difficult issue that potentially does not allow me to leave. If I were to be running sprinklers, for example, and in the house, someone goes to wash dishes or goes to take a shower or goes to turn the washing machine on, my sprinklers shut off. There's not enough water to transition all of, it's just not enough. There's not enough gallons per minute. It's about 4.2 or so gallons per minute, and there is just not enough water.
Is it a well?
It is not a well, it's city water. And
Put a booster on that, too.
You can.
People put boosters on there.
you can,
You can get a lot, and boosters are very inexpensive, cost cost you a few $100s to put it in, hook it up, and it'll boost the pressure.
Will boost the pressure. It will not change the gallons per minute. Which
Yeah, it will.
It will.
Yeah, it will.
We did that at
Oh,
the
I was
animal
not
shelter,
aware of that.
right?
I contacted RWA and I was
I
under.
did it at my house.
I was under the impression that it
I
wouldn't
did it at my
affect
house. My house,
GPS.
you turn it on, dribbles out, you put the
Okay.
booster on, it's
I think
unbelievable.
the question is,
But you can do it, though.
there are things that
There-
we need to explore.
Right.
To see if that is a feasible solution, to continue.
To get us through this season.
Yeah, and I would prefer to not make any commitments to that right at this second, as I
Correct.
hadn't
That's fair.
I haven't had time. As you guys received this proposal today, I received that proposal this afternoon while I was at work and was only had time to shower and come here. Have not had time to be able to really focus my attention and really break down that, as it is the viability of my business. Another serious concern that I have is, as was mentioned by Mary Dean earlier, is the historic fabric or the historic view of the property. I need plastic. This is not, it just has to be the case. And I understand that the idea of irrigation hoses and plastic and fences and greenhouses has always been at the crux of the issue. And I don't see how that works.
Well, it may be that for one more year, okay, you are allowed to farm in the manner that is necessary for you to produce your products, and that it changes after that 1 year. Again, it's all about compromise and what can we do to actually enable farming to continue, but enable the Darling House and the Historical Society to get back to their operations.
Okay.
How do we bring the parties together? 'Cause
I
it's
think
not gonna
that's,
happen
just
here,
gonna
and I
suggest
think
that. I agree.
You know, we can't act on
Yep.
anything,
So
and they don't
who
have
would
an
like to
agreement,
come, and we'll
so-
set up a meeting as soon as possible? Who would like to, Ethan?
I'll be there.
Okay.
Always.
No, they need to,
Yeah, they need to, you guys need
Oh, you
to.
guys want to work together independent of us?
yeah, they either have an agreement or they don't.
That's,
Okay.
Joe is correct. I
Or-
think you gotta.
All right.
come, so you don't get involved in two members of the Board of Selectmen, members, the two groups or the three groups get together and come with a definitive proposal after you've had a time to digest it, and after the Historical Society has time to digest
Okay.
it, come with a proposal.
Thank you.
And they can have a special meeting if they need it.
Okay. We have public comment coming up next.
I'd like to talk about this. As a taxpayer, I want to make sure our town is not investing in a tenant farmer.
I completely agree with you, and we will spend no taxpayer dollars on this.
And the other thing is, I've lived here for more than 40 years. I've never seen the Darling property look as bad as it does. The farming operation is totally incompatible with the historical nature of the house. It looks awful with plastic in front of a house of that era. It's really something, I can't believe the town is entertaining this, because we've gotten along with the Historical Society for more than 40 years. And that's really the primary mission of the Darling House. Why the town is entertaining all this stuff about a tenant farmer that hasn't done, the Historical Society wanted to relieve because he was not doing his job. I don't understand why the town is getting so deeply involved. It makes no sense. And the other thing is, I'm hearing him saying we need this and this and this. This is a historical property, not a farm. They already have the Massaro farm. So I just don't understand why the town is investing in all this effort for one person who is not even, a property owner. He's a tenant. And it's just unbelievable, your priority.
We as a board had 75 letters or more from residents who wanted us to try to work this out.
Well, the
Just saying.
Historical Society, I know, is threatening to leave.
Yes,
after over
and we're
40
hoping that
years.
doesn't happen.
We're trying to find,
We're trying to get a
But it
solution.
doesn't make sense that it's incompatible.
and we're not saying that that's a long-term solution.
Right.
Okay?
And why should
Thank you
we
for your
be
opinion. Mike.
responsible for
Okay,
this?
Dr. Broderick, we have to move on. I appreciate,
no,
I
I'm
really
asking
appreciate, I
the
really
board.
appreciate your opinion.
Why are we
You-
responsible for the farmer?
We are not responsible for the farmer, but
And
thank you
why
for
is
your
the
comments.
Trying to work it out amongst all the parties.
Appreciate your comments, I really
Thank
do.
you.
But we do need to move along.
Okay, so you guys are going to meet and get back to us. Okay.
But we should have some deadline or thought as a board, because this can't just go on for 2 years or a year.
I
If they
agree.
can't reach an
What do you
agreement,
think
we
is an
have to go
acceptable
back to the
deadline?
decision we either
30
make.
days?
Whatever you.
No,
I'm-
you say, you're
30
one
days is
person.
fine with me.
Have 30 days?
Yep.
Agreeable? Okay.
Can you
Next
confirm
meeting.
exactly what you're saying, 30 days too?
Have the agreement ready for the Board of Selectmen?
Have an agreement that we can present to the board of
Yes,
Selectmen?
from both parties, or all parties. Okay. Good? Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming and trying to make this work.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next is liaison reports, item 5. Joe? I didn't mean to make you jump.
I must not have been available for my meetings, no.
Okay,
I'll defer to Dwayne.
okay, Dwight. Go ahead, Dwight, thank you.
During the holidays, there wasn't able really to attend much, but I did attend Human Services this past Monday night. As you,
We got to ask you to go to the
Oop.
microphone, and if everyone has to talk, I would
Hello?
ask you to do
Is
it
that better?
outside.
Yeah, that's better.
better? Okay.
Thank you.
I attended Human Services on Monday, January 6th, at which time they recognized Mary Ellen LaRocco for her 31 years of service, and there is a function tomorrow night that she will be recognized. They looked at the budget, or the operating budget, which they reviewed and the commission approved, so they will be presenting that at the end of this month.
Hold on one second. Hey, guys, could you take your discussions outside, please? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Dwight, sorry.
Okay. They talked about a replacement for Mary Ellen. I know the process is ongoing. They posted the job, they said, on December 9th, and they have, looks like, 2 letters of interest, people that they're going to interview very shortly, and hopefully, and they're excited to get that wrapped up. During the holidays, they assembled 42 holiday food baskets along with gift cards, so that was a positive thing. The Woodbridge Center ramp project has been completed. Now they're looking forward, to proceed with the next phase, which they presented with their budget, capital budget. Youth Services, the guided study at Beecher has been funded. It's going to start on January 13th, and it's going to run through March 23rd, and it's going to be like a few days a week, to offer children, some extra help after school. There's an 8th grade Mardi Gras event that's going to be held at Amity High School with all 8th graders from 3 towns, and that's going to be held on February 21st. And then they were excited, but they had 127 people come to the holiday luncheon, last year, and they say that the meal service is working out great, and it's saving them money. So, and they're excited about that, so that's my report.
Thank you. Sandy?
Library Commission, and you
Okay.
heard from Bob in terms
Great.
of the Board of Ed.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you. The Planning and Zoning Committee was scheduled to meet this week, but they canceled their meeting because of lack of applications. I attended the Board of Fire Commissioners meeting yesterday on January 7th. The commission approved the budget for next fiscal year. In regards to the chief's report, the building seems to have a heating and cooling control issue. The system there is 10 years old, and so he's evaluating new contractor services. Also, he talked about the truck issues. There's an increase in repair because of the age of the trucks. He's looking into appropriate financing for the shed. In regards to the old firehouse, they're looking into using one of the bays for the equipment that they need. The fire marshal reported that he's number of times that he went out to look at different inspections, and one of his major concern was the placing of concrete planters, several, in front of the Amity High School entrance. And so he's looking into that. And that's it.
Thank you. Mika?
Attended the recreation meeting. The ADC commission did not meet. And recreation, the largest portion of the meeting was dedicated to discussions on budget, as you would expect. They're making every effort to minimize any kind of an increase. They are impacted significantly because of the amount of part-time help that they use on an annual basis. They're impacted significantly with the increase in the minimum wages. So that's the largest portion of the increase with recreation is related to wages, as I'm sure is the case in most of the departments. But they're looking to offset it with additional revenues, either through fee increases or new fees. So it will not be as significant as what the wage will be. So as far as programs and administration and non-wage type categories, it'll probably actually decrease, or the revenue will make up for it. The increased revenue will make up for it. They are also making an effort they would like to coordinate an effort to see if they can put more information about the programs in the local publications. So they've reached out to some of the publications to see what they can do about getting more recreation news in the paper, basically. There was the Thursday night youth basketball league has been holding at about 18 to 22 members. This year they've increased that to 41. So it's just through some additional and novel or unique type of advertising with the different people. So they're doing some things to see if they can increase the participation in their different programs. The skating rink has gone in. I don't know if folks have noticed it at the tennis courts, but the skating rink is in. All we need is a little cold weather. But I don't think it'll happen this weekend necessarily, but at least they've moved forward with that. And hopefully before the winter is over, we'll get some opportunity to utilize that. That's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And a little bit late, but we will now start with public comments. Please state your name and address and try to limit your comments to 2 minutes. We have a huge agenda tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Adrian Mucci Smith, 17 Ansonia Road in Woodbridge. I'm a little confused. I have a question. I see that, according to the agenda, there's going to be an executive session pursuant to about the contract negotiations for the country club, but there is no action. What does that mean in terms of when the town meeting and the referendum will be? Does that mean that's not going to take place on the 28th and February 11th?
No, we haven't decided on a date yet because the contract is not completed.
Well, so my question is,
Yep.
how soon are we going to know? If it's going to be the 28th, when are we going to find out?
It's not going to be the 28th of whatever month. What date are you talking
Well,
about? January,
I
February?
I think my understanding is that the tentative date for the town meeting was January 28th, and the tentative date, you said that last month.
We talked about it, but it's not going to happen. It will not happen. As soon as the contract is complete for residents and for the board gets to look at it first, then we will choose a date, not
So does
until.
that mean, I'm not trying to be difficult.
No,
I'm
it's
just trying to
okay.
figure out what's going on,
Mhm.
because our understanding had been that there was two tentative dates. One was January 28th, the other was February 11th.
Right.
So does that mean that there's not, a date's not going to be set until the next Board of Selectmen meeting,
At least.
which would be next February? Which would be
Not next
February.
February, this coming.
I mean, this.
But it all depends on when the contract is complete.
Okay, but it would not be before the next Board of Selectmen meeting.
There could be a special meeting.
We could have a special meeting, but
I understand that you can have a special
we
meeting.
don't
I thought
know.
of that, but then how much time does that give people
there's
No.
there's charter, maybe
to
Jerry
give a
could
general
address the
idea.
timeline.
Can you tell me what that is?
Yeah.
I think the idea
I'm having trouble hearing because my ears, I got the same thing, I've got
I think
I
the
had it all
idea,
shouted
the
out
idea,
here.
the idea.
my ears are blocked, I'm sorry.
The idea was to make sure we had a contract for the community to take a look at before we had a special town meeting and a referendum.
Correct.
And we're going to try and comply with that. It's taking much longer than we thought to get the agreement done. There's three lawyers now involved, 3 different parties, so it's pretty complicated. they've agreed on a lot of issues. There's still a few open issues. But once the Board of Selectmen sees the contract, and it's going to be an executive session initially, because there's going to be some negotiations going on. Once that happens, then the board will have a meeting to set a special town meeting. A special town meeting, you got to send out notice to the public. We'll comply with the charter and the state law in terms of when the notice has to go out. I think it's at least 15 days, not more than 30 days to have the meeting, so you can it won't be less than 15 days from the time the Board of Selectmen sets a special town meeting, and it won't be more than 30 days from the time the special Board of Selectmen makes a special. Okay.
Thank you.
Please try to state your name, address, in 2 minutes if you would.
I heard you, Beth.
Thank you.
Michael Broderick, 5 Old Still Road, Woodbridge. So my first thing is I have a question for the board about the maintenance of the Country Club clubhouse. I know you cut the utilities off. Was the property properly winterized so pipes wouldn't burst when you cut off the utilities?
I think so, yeah. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, that's good. I wanted to point out to the board a project very similar to what the board is contemplating, and I want you to start living in the reality of today's markets and what's going on, and that's Oxford Farms. And I'm going to summarize it for you and for the public. Oxford Green, excuse me. It's a 51-unit senior single housing facility that was development that was built in Oxford. The neighbors originally were happy because, it was going to be single-family homes. And so the developer, after those were built, then proposed to build an assisted living facility. And when the town turned him down, the zoning commission, he then said, okay, I'm going to now get in low-income, age-restricted housing, 197 units, and that is going to change the entire character of Oxford. The exact same thing can happen to us because it has to do with the state-mandated low-income housing, and the developer, if he has problems and fails, we could have the exact same scenario in Woodbridge with your proposal that you're pushing. And people in the public need to know what a disaster it is for Oxford that this has happened. And you should be considering that very, very carefully, because if you ask a lot of senior housing development people, the market is getting flooded, and there's a good likelihood that this project, if it takes years to develop, will also have economic problems, and we may have a developer try to do the same thing to us that would absolutely alter and change the character of Woodbridge forever. And, you guys have not really thought this through thoroughly, or you would be considering, because this is in the news right now. And they had a very similar proposal to ours and thought they could control it, and now look what has happened. And we don't want that in our town, because that's not what Woodbridge is about. It's about residential property, and that's how it should stay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Whoops.
It's Mary Dean again, 8 Mulberry Road. I heard you say that you had many letters, I don't remember what number you said, of residents supporting the farm. And I'm curious to know if you did an analysis of the letters that were sent in to determine whether they were in fact sent by residents. I myself had occasion to look at the packet because I wanted to thank the people who wrote letters for us, and I noticed a very large percentage of them were not residents. I don't have anything to complain about for other people expressing their opinions about the farm, the historical society, anything. But this does it does make a difference when we're trying to decide the future of our town about who we are listening to when they give us advice. So, did you guys notice? Did you?
No.
Okay, so I'm just telling you,
Okay.
they weren't all residents.
Okay. How many were from Woodbridge? Yeah,
Right outside, right?
thank you.
Good evening, Kathy Wick, I live on Rimmon Road. First off, I want to thank you, Beth, for your remarks about public comment at the beginning of the meeting. I really appreciate that it'll be a more interactive opportunity. It's always felt a little strange to sit here and ask questions and not have answers.
Yeah, we
provided.
don't want to have a giant dialogue, but on the other hand, it's,
Understood,
yeah.
understood. And so
Yeah.
my first question actually is for Tony. At the Board of Finance meeting back in October, we talked about whether you would be able to prepare a report that analyzed potential costs of adding residents to the town, as you had done several years ago for the toll project, and you indicated that you would be able to do that for this current proposal that's under discussion. And I'm wondering how when we might be able to expect something like that.
That's some future meeting. It's still, the middle of budget and all that, but
Okay.
hopefully by the, we'll have something for the public meeting, the hearing.
The
Special
special town meeting?
Yeah.
And that
We don't have a date yet.
Understood. And so the other thing I wanted to ask about is the previous schedule that you set out tentatively at the previous meeting gave a relatively short time between the public hearing and the referendum itself. It was only 2 weeks. And my experience has been that at those kinds of public hearings and meetings, a lot of questions come up and a lot of issues come up. And 2 weeks doesn't seem like enough time to get all of those issues fully addressed. And so
The state statute requires that when an issue is removed from a special town meeting to be placed on a referendum, it must be held within 14 days of the special town meeting. And that is the idea, because you don't want it to, it's got to be fresh in everyone's mind, that they have to vote quickly, you can't keep putting it off. So the statute limits us to that 14-day time period.
now I read it in the charter.
It's not the charter, it's a state statute.
Okay, because there's something in the charter that indicates 5 to 21 days, I thought.
There's nothing in the charter about removing something from a special town meeting to a
Okay.
referendum. That's state statute.
That's state statute.
And if you look at the state statute, it says it must be within 14 days
Okay.
from the adjournment of the, because what you do is you adjourn the special town meeting
Right, to a
referendum. State statute says it must be done in no more than 14 days.
Okay. Well, then the other thing I wanted to address was another issue that came up at that Board of Finance meeting, which was Ellen Scalatar, a member of the Board of Finance, said that the town was not obligated to use income from a sale to pay off the debt. And that, as you can imagine, raised some eyebrows. And I know that, yes, and there was discussion at the subsequent finance meeting in November about that whole question. And the upshot of that discussion was that is correct. The town is not obligated and may choose not to pay off the debt with this money, even though that may be the intention of many people. And Susan Jacobs said that the discretion of the Board of Finance and this board should not be circumscribed, and there should not be a requirement that that is done. So now, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think it's important that if that is the case and you are not going to oblige yourself to pay off the debt with that income, that you don't continue to say that that's what you're going to do. It was said earlier in this meeting that you're going to do that. I'm concerned that your fact sheet be accurate and contain the fact that you are not obligated to pay the debt with that potential income. And so I think that it's important that we all make sure that our statements are accurate in both directions. The other issue that came up at that meeting was when the chairman of the Board of Finance was critiquing or rebutting some of the things that people had said. He commented on the point that I had made, which was I had tracked the budget growth in Orange and Woodbridge and compared them and discovered that they were almost identical since the fiscal year 2007, the last decade. And he said that I was measuring mill rates, and that's not at all accurate. I was measuring the per capita tax burden on residents. Mill rate is not a good measure when you're comparing across town lines, as we know. To give you an extreme example, Greenwich's mill rate is 11. That doesn't mean people in Greenwich pay 1/4 the taxes that we pay, obviously. Hartford's mill rate is 74. That doesn't mean the average tax burden in Hartford is double Woodbridge's, obviously. So if you compare mill rates, you're really comparing apples and oranges. I wanted to choose a measure that was apples and apples, and that's why I chose the per capita tax burden. So I want just to make that clear to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, sure.
Just it is my intent to pay down the debt.
No, I understand that. I understand that. But right, you're one person, and your intent today.
It's mine too.
Right, understood. And that's your intent today.
Yeah.
But as was, it was a considerable discussion. I don't know if you've seen the tape of that meeting, but it was a quite considerable discussion that they refuse to obligate themselves. They don't feel that the board should be obligated, that they might decide at that time that there's a better use for that money. And so my point is, as long as that's the case, and that's fine, but just be transparent about that. And don't say that you're going to do it if you're not necessarily going to do it. That's all.
Points well taken. You say
Yep.
intention, but we're not obligated to do it.
Exactly.
Thank you. That's it? Okay. Oh, sure. 2 minutes, state your name and address. Trying to tell everybody the same thing.
Leland Torrance Jr. I live at 135 Rimmon Road. I just wanted to comment concerning the Darling House Koan Farms. Forgive me because I kind of wrote this as a stream of consciousness, but I kind of wanted to comment on the whole situation. What we are dealing with in regards to the Amity-Woodbridge Historic Society is a problem of ethics and morals. As a moral person, I wouldn't want to call anyone out publicly and embarrass them, but the actions of the Amity-Woodbridge Historic Society are affecting people's lives and careers. The public statements that have been made on their behalf have been misleading and untruthful. Statements claiming to have 15 members, including 2 archivists and historians. If there are 2 archivists, where is their online archive database for the public and marketing purposes? No fundraising efforts have been put in place. The fact that a person who has been president of the Historic Society for a few years, who is not a Woodbridge resident, is willing to threaten to remove their collection from the property seems immature. After the last Board of Selectmen meeting, when an agreement was not met to their liking, they went to the Darling House and removed the Amity-Woodbridge Historic Society sign and Christmas decorations. If this is how a town organization conducts itself, we should be ashamed. The comments on behalf of the Historic Society during these ongoing discussions at the Board of Selectmen meetings should be seen by an ethical audience as fact enough that ungrounded bullying by the Historic Society of Farmer Ethan has caused this disagreement to arise from the beginning. Leland Torrance Sr. generated a report on the caretaker apartment and property management of the Darling House per the request of the Historic Society last March. This report clearly outlined all of the existing issues we are still debating. The Historic Society never utilized this extremely thorough report and proceeded to remove Leland Torrance Sr. from their executive committee. If the town is incapable of seeing through the misconceptions and unclear accusations of the Historic Society against Ethan and others, then we have a larger issue than one corrupted Historic Society. I hold us all accountable for this. I am a restoration carpenter and have specialized in period reproduction. The stonewalling of town residents attempting to contribute to the betterment of the property has resulted in little progress in developing the Darling House as a destination historic home. And as a final statement, the museum does not carry regular open to public hours. Koan Farms is the only avenue for the public to access this town treasure at this point, and it should not be that way. It should be a joint relation to integrate town history and farming. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Okay, thank you. I have to have the public hearing exactly at 7, correct? So we should skip at number 7. Yeah, I didn't know you were, do you want to speak? Please step up. 2 minutes and state your name and address, please. Thank you.
David Lober, 35 Blackwell Road. The first thing I'd like to comment on is one thing that you said in your Selectmen report, first Selectmen report, having to do with the fitness center. Now, I'm firsthand privy to this petition, and the original petition stated we would like to keep the fitness center open. And the reason that was started was because someone from town insurance inspector found some deficiencies at the gym, mainly that the carpet was wrinkled and was a trip hazard, and that the machinery and the equipment was too close together. So the fear was, and I don't know whether it was founded or not, but the fear was that they would close the fitness center. So the original petition was the undersigned would like to keep the fitness center open. One of the members, Betty McVitie, went to Beth with that petition, and she came back with a new petition, which was...
Wait a minute, she didn't bring the first petition to me.
Okay.
I never saw it.
All
This is
right.
the only petition we got is the one
She
we
went,
received.
okay.
I just want to correct that you said she brought the petition to me and came back with a new petition. The only petition I've ever seen is the one that was presented to the board.
Betty McVitie said that she would go to First Selectman's Heller's office, which I believe she did.
She did.
She did.
Five or six
And
other
she
people.
came back with a petition that said, in the first line, we, the undersigned, want to move the fitness center to the old firehouse. Her explanation was that that would give the fitness center first, quote unquote, first dibs on the spot in the old firehouse. That was not the original intent of the petition. And I told people there, if you sign this, what you're doing is you're going to say that you want the fitness center moved to the old firehouse, which was not the original intent when that was started. And I said that Beth would present that as such. And I'll just let that stay where it is. But the main thing I wanted to... What's that?
I have to tell you,
And
I
it's-
had nothing to do with the petition. This is the only, I just suggested if they want to have residents comment on where to put the fitness center, have residents sign a petition. I didn't write the petition, I didn't see the petition.
The language that was
I
suggested...
don't know anything about the language. I didn't write it. I don't have anything. It's up to Betty McVitie the way she wrote it. I didn't do it.
Well, she came with the idea of moving the fitness center to the old firehouse, and she said that that was your wording. Now,
Okay,
if
fine.
you want to deny that, that's
will.
fine, and I would like you to deny that.
Right.
But then you're calling Betty McVitie a liar, and
No,
you're calling
I'm
me...
never calling anyone a liar.
Okay, then you're saying I have the facts incorrect. If you want to say that, for the record...
I suggested she do a petition.
And the
signed
wording of
by
the
residents,
and the wording of the
suggest-
petition was,
I didn't give her the wording.
did you give a suggestion as to what should be included?
If that's what they choose to want to do, yes, of course. Or they could say whatever they want in a petition. Yes, move it to the old firehouse. Don't move it to the new, don't take it out of there. It's their decision to do a petition.
Okay.
I'd like to clarify too, real quick, if I may, is that
Speak into
it
the
was always the
microphone.
intention to move the fitness center over to the old firehouse.
That's
The
been,
plans,
that's
it was,
been years in the
no, I understand that, but
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
but it has been in the plans. We are gonna talk about it tonight, the use of the old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
I
it was
get that.
planned, that was the original plan.
I get that, but this
Okay.
is different. This was a fear that the fitness center would be closed because of insurance issues.
Okay.
And the remedy that Betty McVitie came back with is move it to the fitness center, move it to the old firehouse. Well, that's the information I have.
Okay.
Okay. But the bigger thing I want to talk about really has to do with the Darling House, and I'll try to keep it brief. There have been negotiations between the town and the Amity-Woodbridge Historical Society, which continue with no resolution reached. At issue here is really a $48,000 grant, which has been approved by the state of Connecticut for the society to use for the property. This is state tax money, which originally was paid for by state taxpayers, some of which are in Woodbridge. It will only be dispersed if the society has control of the property, which right now they do not, including the caretaker's apartment. That's the central issue to this whole thing. And I'd like to try to keep people focused on that. The policy of the town may cost the society that grant, which will then have to come out of Woodbridge tax funds, taxing the residents twice. This, in my opinion, is not fiscally responsible. It should also be noted that there is no other town land that is leased to farmers where the town has taken such an active interest. There are no other town-owned lands that are leased to farmers where the town has considered any kind of financial involvement or accommodation. There were at least 3 other tenants of the Darling House who were asked to leave, threatened with eviction, or evicted. In all these cases, the town declined to get involved. It is common practice for farmers to lease land and not live on the premises, as discussed by me with professional farmers who have done it. I don't want to say anything against Ethan. I think he does a good job with what he does, but there's a conflict of interest here between Ethan and the Historical Society. But Ethan was contracted to be a caretaker at that property. He wasn't contracted to farm that land, and that has seemed to have changed. The individuals who have a contractual interest are the Board of Selectmen and the Amity-Woodbridge Historical Society. Ethan is a tenant, and he is bound by the terms of his lease, which is, to my understanding, no longer in force. I could be wrong about that. So my question really to this board is, who owns the problem? And how are you going to resolve it? And I think until you clarify who owns the problem and who has the power in this situation, then you can't reach a resolution. I mean, the power is obviously with the board. The Historical Society has very little power. Any power that Ethan has, he will derive from whatever the board decides. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? Okay.
I'll be really quick.
State your name and address in 2
Laura
minutes,
Torrance, 17 Vernon Court. This whole thing with the Historical Society and Koan Farms turned into a personal matter on both sides. Everyone's feelings are hurt. People want control. I ask why no one has questioned if business and the Thomas Darling House, I am a taxpayer just like most of you. The Thomas Darling House is a property that's worth well over $1 million. It's owned by the town. You guys are in charge of what happens to it. Do people think that in 40 years, is that how long it's been that it's been managed by or run by through the Historical Society, that business and things have changed, that historical societies want to survive in this economic market, that we don't want to see the Thomas Darling House fall to ruin? It's not going to be sustainable with 2 tavern nights, which I love. It's a wonderful event, and I love going to it. But you can't earn enough money to sustain a big building and the $12,000 a year that they get from a tenant. It's a bigger picture. We want to be able to have this house survive another 300 years. And that's what this is all about. How can we keep the Thomas Darling House going? How can we have a beautiful property that so many towns would love to have, and we have it right here? But this has turned into whether Ethan stays and they're going to leave. Why would you leave such a beautiful property that you get for $1 but we need to have a plan how to sustain this property, how to make it survive into the next century. My husband is a preservation expert. We love the Thomas Darling House. We love the Historical Society, and we are fond of Ethan too. But this isn't about Ethan staying in the caretaker's cottage. It's about keeping the house so that it doesn't fall into ruin. It cannot be sustained with the monies. Even the $40,000 that they're going to get for this Good to Great grant, that's nothing. They don't understand business. You have to keep this property going. All the abatements, all the rotting wood, the paint, all the things that have to happen. Even if Ethan leaves, which it sounds like he may, we need to keep this property going. It's something we should be proud of. And as stewards for the town, you have to make sure there's a business plan, a plan to keep this building going. Because if we don't have one and all we agree is to get rid of Ethan, that doesn't solve anything. So please keep in mind that this has to be a business plan, somehow to keep this building going. As a taxpayer, I don't want to pay for it. If the Historical Society gets that building for $1 a year, then they have to figure it out. And that's what you have to look at. What is the long-term plan for this building? How can we keep it? Because it's a wonderful asset to our town. And they've tried, but they're not business people. So you people are responsible for how we get it to survive into the next century. Thanks.
Thank you. Last call. Okay.
I just would like to, just so the board knows, Ethan does have a lease in effect now. It's a month-to-month lease, which could be canceled by the board at any time. But in that lease, it says, in addition to his rights to live in the property, notwithstanding the aforementioned, tenants shall be permitted to plant, grow, harvest vegetable products on the portion of the premises designated by the landlord in writing as suitable and available. That language was put in there at the request of the Historical Society in December 2018. And I put it in because they requested it and Ethan requested it as well. So it was a mutual understanding that it would be used for partially farming as well as Ethan being allowed to be the caretaker. Just so the board, just so that clarifies it for the board.
But that's not a meeting of the minds
No, now they've gone
anymore.
different ways,
So
yeah.
it's a month-to-month lease. If they don't like that language
Right,
anymore,
but
they
they would
can terminate it.
But historically, he did have the right, and he was
Yeah.
given the right by the
Well, has
town.
anybody questioned whether he's had the right to
Well,
farm?
one of the last speakers came up and said,
Said he didn't have the right to farm?
that's what I got out of it.
He must have-
Okay.
That there's none.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll get back to, everybody's really all done with public comment, okay. Next on the agenda, why don't we skip public hearing until 7 o'clock and go to number 9? Right, is that? Yeah, okay, Administrative Officer, Director of Finances Report, Tony.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So through our first 6 months of the year, through December, our financial of a surplus of, budgetary surplus of about $145,000. This leaves us with a projected fund balance of $6.1 million, which is a little over 12% of our annual expenditures. We have a surplus of discharge for services of $55,000. That's primarily due to two things. Building permit fees and conveyance taxes are both doing much better than our budget and much better than we had historically done. On expenditures, the Board of Selectmen budget is anticipating a $55,000 surplus due to a vacant position that was not filled or will not be filled. The building officials department is expected to generate a surplus of about $25,000 due to the hiring of a part-time building official, and so that's a surplus there. Waste management is anticipated to experience a deficit of about probably $25,000 to $30,000 due to increased recycling costs. Again, recycling per ton has gone up to almost $75 a ton. And we pay $62 a ton for solid waste. So we're paying more for recycling than for solid waste. And I think the budget was at $54 a ton when we actually wrote the budget for recycling. So
Get that glass out of there.
it's a glass, that's the big problem, right?
Do we, as far as the fees we're charging now, is that involved, is that,
Well, we're gonna review the, operations next month. It's our, the last we met, you said 6 months. We reviewed
no,
the
but I mean, in
transfer station
terms of,
operations.
this is a deficit, even, like
We
we
do
were.
not
we're
charge
charging-
currently for recycling.
No, I'm saying for the trucks that are coming in now, the way station. the
Oh,
way-
okay.
That whole, that whole
This is
fee
just a
structure.
deficit for expenditures. The revenues are probably
Got it.
pretty close. Maybe a slight deficit in revenues, but not much.
From what was budgeted.
From what was budgeted, right.
Thank you.
And benefits, should have a surplus about $40,000. We have reduced workers' compensation premium. That's the main driver of that.
That was as a result of that new.
We went
plan.
out to bid and
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
Okay, any questions for Tony on the monthly report? Okay. Next is the tax refunds. You have in your packet a memo from Pat Crisco. And this month, there are no personal property refunds. There are real estate refunds in the amount of $5,324.76 and motor vehicle refunds of $1,827.65 for a refund total in January, $7,152.41. I'll make a motion that we approve that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on those? All in favor? Oh, you have a question, or you? Okay. Okay, all in favor, thank you. Item C is funding requests, and we have the first one, which is, it's a line item transfer, actually number 1920-11 in the amount of $8,000. There's a memo in your packet from Tony to us to cover the cost of senior luncheon meals for St. Patrick's Day luncheon and January 1st through June 30th, and it's a line item transfer within Human Services budget, coming from part-time all other to general professional services. Do you have anything to add on that, Tony?
Because we no longer employ a cook, we had budgeted for the wages, and therefore we're outsourcing it, and this transfers from one to the other. Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion that we approve it.
Second.
Thank you. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next line item is a request for funding number 1920-12 in the amount of $30,000. There's an attached memo from Chief Rowland regarding the department request for contingency funds. You have that in your packet. Coming from contingency to fire department repair, maintenance, and machinery. Do you have anything to add on that?
I
or-
don't, Chief Rowland's here.
Oh, Chief Rowland's here, if anyone, where is he? I didn't see him.
In the
I
back.
have a question.
Oh, good. Maybe we want to make a motion. Oh, yeah, well, go ahead, yeah.
You want to do it in a discussion?
No, it's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, no, that's okay, go ahead.
Okay. So Sean, can you tell us, what is the amount that is in this line item in the budget?
So
And how
this
much
is-
have you spent?
This is, we've spent close to, right around 50,000 in money encumbered. Or I'm sorry, we've spent closer to 55 this year so far.
So 50,000 is the budget?
We
or
have
50
68 appropriated.
Okay.
We're about 55, 58,000, then we have money, encumbered, that we do for blanket POs. This is, over the last few years, we usually come to you in January to request, funds, because we're coming to the end of where we usually run out of money, and we basically say we're gonna need contingency. Usually, what happens is on the average, over the last few years, we've been averaging right around $100,000 a year. So what we do is, we wanna basically let you guys know where we are right now, and then as the year goes on, we'll probably end up, at the end of the year, if we have money in other line items, we usually do line item transfers to offset as much as we can, and then we fill in with contingency at that point.
No, go ahead, Joe, it's fine.
I just want to understand, your memo, you say you spent 96 in FY 18, 87 in FY 19. So I know, so what was budgeted in this?
68.
68.
Right.
Yeah, but you requested how much?
We requested, last year, we requested 80 to try to get us closer to
where
But you
we
brought it
normally
down
are.
this year, but-
No, the Board
They
of
cut it.
Selectmen, Board of Finance
Cut
brought
it.
it back down
Okay.
to 68. So
I get it.
we know we go over that line consistently every year.
All right.
That's our,
So,
Depending on operations of the department.
Correct.
Some years we're able to cover.
so I can tell
More
you,
than others.
I got
we're
that.
also,
I was gonna see if
we
we
had
can
a,
find
we had
it somewhere
we had a
else.
busy year last year, last budget cycle where we had 758 calls. This year, we had our second busiest year. We're at over 535 calls. So our call volume's up. The trucks are getting more and more use
No,
and wear and
that's-
tear on the
I-
equipment.
I understand, so the 30 is not.
The
to
30 is
cover
not
any-
set in stone
And it's not covering any specific cost
right now. No,
So the 30 goes in anticipation that you're gonna need it.
correct.
As time goes on and you use it, then you may be able to find it out of other department line items.
Correct.
Okay.
Toward the end of the year, we usually take that up in June, July.
It's such a large
So-
amount, we feel it's appropriate for you to be on notice that this
Right.
is an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a
Right.
little early to start to take money that we don't absolutely need from contingency.
We always come in January. If we go back to last January, we sent the same memo, just with different
But why-
numbers on
yeah,
it.
I mean, Sandy seems, why can't you come in when you need the money?
Because when we get close to these numbers, and I could just tell you that, like engine 2 just went out and we had a repair on it. A repair on engine 2 was $7,200. When I start sending the trucks out for lube oil and filters, an oil change on a fire truck is in the area of about $1,500 to $1,800. So when I have about $10,000 left, it seems like a lot of money, but it actually goes really quick. And I just don't want to overspend before I tell you what we're doing and how.
I guess as long as we understand, so the money goes in, it gets used perhaps.
Gets allocated.
It may not get used.
So
You're right, it
If
gets
get
allocated,
used, we
right.
may be able to find the money somewhere.
For a matter of
else.
history, in the past couple of years, the Board of Finance has
Yeah, that's the perspective
that.
I'm coming from, I'm
Right.
sorry.
has stopped the
Yeah, it's
funding
not
request.
allocated, it's not
It
approved
has.
it.
No, I understand, you
Right.
cut it.
No. The Board of Finance actually in
Oh,
the past
hasn't
has
approved
not
when we-
approved this.
when we
So the
pass
Board
it.
of Selectmen
You
approves
would
it,
approve
and
it,
then
and
they
then they
go
would
with,
stop it and say, well,
because
let's
that's
hold
the
off.
concern,
Yeah.
okay? It's not for a specific
I got it.
need,
I didn't realize you guys.
yeah, sorry.
So just so I understand, if we approve this tonight, let's just say the finance board does approve it, it would go in your budget and then we would get it back if you don't need it. The town would just stay in your budget, correct?
Correct, and usually, like
Right.
Tony was saying,
That's just
usually
saying
what
both
happens,
boards
it will
approve it,
stop at the
which
Board of
we don't know if
Finance,
that's gonna
but it
happen.
just puts everybody to know where the marker is every
Right.
year.
But I think you could also let us know where you are and say, look, it's likely, okay, based on, our experience,
It
that we're
is-
gonna,
it is
as opposed
likely.
to giving you the money in advance.
Mhm.
Because in a way, that sets a precedent for other departments to say, well, we know we're gonna need this too. And chances are, if it's in your budget, you're gonna spend it. I mean, that's just kind of what happens, right?
Not necessarily. We still have to do POs and everything to fix the equipment. Usually what happens is if we have a couple big repairs, we'll start eating right through the money. Now, I can tell you one of the unforeseen things that we saw this year is, we had something called, it's Class B foam. It's got the PFAS in it. Everybody's seen it on the news up at Bradley Airport, and it contaminated the Farmington River, and it's a big environmental cleanup. And that's the same type of foam we're using, so we had to pay an environmental contractor to come in, and they had to take the foam out of the tank, clean the tank, scrub the tank. That's $4,000, and then we had to buy the new environmentally friendly foam, which is roughly another $4,000, so that's $8,000 that was not anticipated.
Anticipated.
So when we have different issues like that, or we break a valve on a fire truck is extremely expensive. We could be looking at $3,000 a valve. It's not something small. A ladder repair, a ladder, we can go to Home Depot, buy the best ladder we can for $300, but it's not a fire rated ladder. A fire rated ladder, I have to buy them for $1,000, $1,100, $1,400. Same deal with an axe. An axe brakes,
Home Depot, you can go there, buy a $30 axe, but it's not to the same standard or the same specification that you need for the fire service. Fire service axe is $130. So everything in the fire service is extremely inflated, and you really don't have a choice. So when we come to you, we're trying to come to you. We know we're gonna be probably close to that number again this year. I can't tell you exactly where we're gonna be because we're only in January.
Sure. Okay.
So
So you came with a budget, you got down to 68, right? Even though he's telling the finance board he needs the money. And now he doesn't really, he knows he's gonna need the money the same way he knew he needed the money when he set his budget. And he's asking for the money. It just seems like a crazy way to do a budget to me. That may be another issue. Because it's just like a backdoor into the budget he asked for in the first place. You know, so I don't know.
Well, I'll move it forward.
listen,
then.
I'm okay with if. I think we just want to all be on the same page. We're not looking to do anything crazy here tonight. I think what we want to do is just be aware of we're most like we're going to be going over our budget. We know that for a fact. Do we know where it's going to stop? It might be at 25. It might be at 28. It might be at 30. It might be at 31. We don't know. But once we get toward the end of the year, if we have money in other line items that we usually do a line item transfer, we might only need 15,000 of it.
Right. But I think that the process, and Tony, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we don't want to dip into contingency when
That's
we
true.
really don't need it. Okay, and that we would prefer that some of the line item transfers occur first, okay, within someone's
I
budget.
can't take a line item transfer when we're only 6 months into the year.
You'll know that better probably another couple months. 2
Right.
months.
I can't do that
Anyway,
right now.
I'm just saying, that's the perspective I'm coming from. So, is there an issue here? Probably, yes, we need to talk about this first.
If this were to be proposed in 2 months, does that put you in does that put you at risk in terms of repairs?
No, usually what we do is we're all under the understanding and we have to repair the trucks and the
Right.
equipment. We don't really have a choice. So we do that and we overrun that line in the budget.
Right.
And then we
Try to make it up
make it up at the end of the year, and then whatever we're short, that's what we hit
I
contingency
think Mika
for.
wanted to know if perhaps you came back to us in March, when a contingency, we might have a better idea about how much snow we're gonna get, or whatever we save that for. Could you hold off till March? Could you?
I can't tell you that it's gonna wait, I'm gonna
Well, if
last
it-
till March.
okay.
I
But
can't.
if
One
it-
repair, I could be right over the
Yeah,
top
true.
here.
And if that occurs, we're just pushing it down, knowing full well that we're gonna have to do this.
That's all we're doing right now. We're just more putting it on notice that
Yeah.
we're most likely gonna be going over that line like
Mm-hmm.
we've been consistently doing for the last 4 or 5
it's a more
years.
comfortable
So my
process.
suggestion would be this. We approve it, it goes to the Board of Finance, and they either approve it or they don't. They're the ones who brought the money down in the first place.
Right,
Right.
correct.
So let them follow through this year and, control it.
Sean, how
My
long has
tendency would be not to approve it, but
Right.
let it go to the Board of Finance,
Yeah.
because for some reason, you guys thought Chief didn't need that money. I don't particularly know why, because he's needed it in the last 2 years, but
4 years.
Right,
4 years.
4, yeah,
so.
okay. So if it's okay to get
We don't
the
have the
evening
final
rolling,
say on it anyway.
right. I'll make a motion that we approve the request for funding number 1920-12 in the amount of $30,000, taking from contingency that amount to fire department repair, maintenance, and machinery. Is there a second?
Second.
And any further discussion, or, okay, all in favor? All opposed? Okay. Thanks, so motion passes 4-2. Okay, thanks. I'll keep going here. Couple more minutes, or should we do public hearing?
No, I think you need
All right.
to do the public hearing.
Okay. I asked Jerry, he said yes.
You can do that, you don't have to do it right. It's
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay,
Well, we might as well do it, though.
Yeah.
let's
there
go.
you go.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna really need help getting back into this packet when
That's
this is
fine.
over. Wow. All right. Okay, I have a script to read. In accordance with Section 4-5, parens B and parens 1 and parens of the Charter of the Town of Woodbridge, I now call this public hearing to order to receive comments regarding the proposed revisions to the Town of Woodbridge ordinances. The legal notice was published in the New Haven Register on Thursday, December 26, 2019. There's a copy in your packet, but I'd like to entertain a motion to waive the reading of the legal notice.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. First, we will consider the proposed amendment to Chapter 175-2, blighted premises. I will call on Mika as chairman of the Ordinance Committee to describe the purpose of the proposed amendment.
Blighted premises is adding an article in order to address the maintenance of grounds and yards as to grass, weeds, unstacked wood, rubbish, and deteriorating equipment. There is one portion of the Section D, and this adds item 11, and just to read it, it's just grounds and yards that fail to meet the level of maintenance of surrounding premises and properties and/or is an element leading to the progressive deterioration of the neighborhood. Examples shall include planted grasses in excess of 14 inches in height that remain uncut for a period of 30 days or longer, severely overgrown weeds, that's a typo, bushes, dead fallen trees, unstacked wood, rubbish, and deteriorated equipment and/or materials. Property maintained in its natural state or natural or wooded state, garden and ornamental planting shall be exempt from this provision. Questions or?
Now I could ask if the public has any comments regarding the proposed amendment to this ordinance. Hearing none, I now am going to ask the clerk if she has received any additional comments on that as of 4:30 today or whatever. Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to consider the proposed amendments to Chapter 370, Storm Water Management. Again, I'll ask Mika to describe the purpose of the proposed amendments to the ordinance.
The stormwater amendment is specific to amend the existing ordinance and bring it into compliance with state of Connecticut requirements. So it's adding language that just updates our existing ordinance so that we are in line with what the state requires. It's a rather long one, so I'll refrain from reading that one. But it is obviously contained and it's on the website, I believe, so.
Yes, okay.
It was put together with a consultant as well as the Department of Public Works folks as well. And we've gone over, it's been in progress, and Jerry has reviewed it. It's been in progress for a number of months at this point in time. So this does bring us into compliance.
Thank you, Mika. I'm going to ask if the public has any comments regarding the proposed amendments to this ordinance. Hearing none, I will again ask the clerk if she has received any additional comments. Thank you. Now we will consider a proposed new ordinance establishing an agricultural commission. I will ask Mika again to describe the purpose of the proposed new ordinance.
This is proposed specifically to establish, I should say, an agricultural commission, and it's to help identify the issues of concerns to farmers, to raise public awareness of the benefits of local farms and working lands, and to identify ways in which a town can support the business and land use needs of local farmers. Again, this is one that we've been working with for quite some time. It's come up a couple of times during our meeting today already. Any questions?
Okay. Now I have to ask the public if they have any comments regarding the proposed new ordinance. It looks like the room is ready. I would ask that you please state your name and address for the record and have at it. One at a time, and speak into the mic, please. What? Oh, yeah, 2-minute time limit. Joe reminded me, sorry. Thanks, Joe.
I gotta go to sleep, that's all.
New Year. My name is Andrea Urbano of 115 Sperry Road in Woodbridge. On behalf of two residents who cannot attend tonight's meeting, Alex Blythe of Rimmon Road and William Jones of Johnson Road, they wanted me to express their support for the establishment of the commission, and I can get that in writing if needed. Mika, we've been working on this for 2 years. And I am stating very clearly my support for the establishment of Woodbridge's Agricultural Commission. Establishing this commission would help support and enhance Woodbridge's agricultural economy, the town's health and quality of life. It would make Woodbridge much more competitive to receive relative grants and funds from state and federal agencies, and would support the many farmers that are in need in a way that no other commission in this town currently can. That's it. It's pretty simple. I think you have all the information, and I hope to see this move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we could try
My
to just.
suggestion would
Good
be
evening.
to ask if somebody is against it, and then if there's no one against it, just to announce that I think the board is pretty much in favor of it, and you can go vote, but it's up, anybody wants to speak?
I think people who
Okay.
came should have the opportunity to speak and address us.
And I wasn't gonna preclude them, I was gonna say that if they didn't want to, didn't need to, if they didn't feel they wanted to speak, they didn't have to speak, because anybody can speak. I was never
Okay.
gonna say not to speak,
Yeah.
Sandy. I said to understand that if there was no opposition.
It's a
it
friendly
appears that-
room.
It's
okay. It's a
all
friendly
friends.
crowd.
We've already put
Yeah,
this
right,
forward.
exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
that's fine. I'm sorry, I missed that.
We're all.
If they have some comments.
If they wanna make a change, right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think they're here to convince us.
I think you're.
Something
Right,
Yeah.
you've
but
already-
that's my point.
Personally,
I know.
I don't need
It's very
convincing.
well
So
That's my point.
You know.
I
Okay.
think Jerry's right.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Are we ready?
Yes. Name, address in 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Savino. I live at 128 Ford Road in Woodbridge. I run and I operate the winery and vineyard, the only one in Woodbridge. And we've been operating there for the last 13 years for the tasting room, but the vineyard was planted 20 years ago. We're open 2 days a week, 7 months out of the year. Out of these 2 days, last year alone, we got over 2,000 wine tasters, visitors that weren't Woodbridge residents. And they come because of farming. They don't come there to shop. They come there really to stay and hang out. You know? So I believe the farming do attract people to the area. Also, it is important for Woodbridge, the town itself, to show their approval of this commission for the next generation, because the next generation will be the ones that are going to take over these existing farms and probably even enhance them even more. But I would send a friendly message to the next ones. So I would urge you to approve this commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
I'm going to be brief because I know it seems like there's a lot of people in favor here, but I just want to say as a current, Leland Torrance, 17 Vernon Court, current member of the Conservation Commission and past member of Planning and Zoning, is I think one of the most important things about Woodbridge historically is we've been the farm belt, or the breadbasket, as you say, for New Haven for a long time. It's beginning to happen again with some of our CSAs. In terms of a destination, in terms of Massaro Farm, the winery, it does tremendous things for our image, but even more than that, something we discussed over 15 years ago in Planning and Zoning is that with all our open space and land, one of the most remarkable and beautiful things about Woodbridge is the stone walls and the open fields. And that takes stewardship, and it takes a lot of time. So I think to have a commission to promote these kind of activities, and I will just remind everybody that when we had our first open meeting of farmers, we had over 41 farmers.
That was that Farmers Forum, I remember, way back.
In Woodbridge. And many of
Long time
them
ago.
are under the age of 30.
Yeah.
Like my son,
I
like
agree.
Andrea, so, and like Chris. Yeah. You're under there, right? But no, so it's one of the
Okay.
few areas where I think we can not only have an economy, but keep our youth here in town. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Beth, I just wanted to, if I should read the membership and duties because of that. Membership, the commission shall consist of 5 resident voters appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and the commission shall be advisory to the Board of Selectmen and have the duties set forth in the Connecticut General Statute 7.131.
I'm Nick Zito, 115 Sperry Road, new resident, former commercial maple syrup producer in Connecticut. I've lived in 3 towns that have these commissions and see the need, the benefits. A lot of the work that I saw was with members tying with the high school and getting kids involved. They even funded a greenhouse in the local school. So I just see the benefit, want to voice my support. I know I don't have a lot of history like a lot of the other folks here, but just here to support this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Cool. Okay, there's no other further comments, and I now declare this public hearing closed. And then we'll go right to the next item following that, which is action as appropriate on comments received in public hearing. I'm going to now ask for a motion to adopt the proposed amendment to Chapter 175, blighted premises as described in the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And it's unanimous, Jerry. Thank you. I declare the motion carried and the proposed amendment adopted. I'm going to now ask for a motion to adopt the proposed amendment to Chapter 370, Stormwater Management, as described in the public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Joe did.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry. Is there any discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, unanimous. Thank you. I declare the motion carried and the proposed amendment adopted. And I will now make a motion to adopt the proposed new ordinance establishing an agricultural commission as described in the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Great idea.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait. I declare the motion carried and the ordinance establishing an agricultural commission adopted. If adopted, wait, this is important. The ordinances are effective February 22nd, 2020, 45 days from the date of adoption. At this point, I want to explain the procedure for appointments to the Agricultural Commission. You already did, so we're all set. Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming out and being patient with us. Okay, where were we? Back to number 9.
Funding request.
Yep, what number?
1920-13.
1920-13. Thanks, Dwight. Okay. Yeah.
Move up and join the crowd, John.
You could sit right over there, I don't care. Okay, thank you. Next, for funding request number 1920-13 in the amount of $10,000. This is request for funding of Phase 2 of the security assessment for Beecher Road School, coming out of contingency to the Board of Ed, General Professional Services. Tony, do you have a further discussion on this, or anyone have any?
I'd like to make a motion that we hold action on this. We haven't seen the report yet for Phase 1. I talked to Tony earlier today a little bit about this, and I'd like to really see the report and maybe bring the consultant to our February meeting so he can give us some. We haven't even seen the report, so I don't understand where the recommendations are going for the next phase in that. So what I'd like to do is just make put a hold on this. Let's ask for the copy of the report. We can keep it here for us to look at, because it is, we don't want it floating around. And then we can ask the consultant to come back at February in executive session.
So,
and then we can discuss
what
it
is the
further.
consensus of the board on Dwight's proposal?
I would.
Has there been a motion? Are we discussing it?
No, we're going to have a discussion. I'm asking for the consensus. Maybe we don't need to make a motion necessarily. We just.
No, I just
consensus
wanted
of
to-
the board is.
Right away, do they have to
I don't know.
The only thing the funds are required for is to start the second phase, which is to take the data gathered in the first phase and,
But we
come up
don't
with
know
the
what
drawing
we don't know
conclusions.
what the data is yet.
Right.
First phase.
So
We
if
don't
you,
know.
he
so.
can certainly come and present what he's found so far,
Yeah.
if you'd like.
I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm just wondering why it's different from the last funding request we just, or the thing we just did with the fire department. How is it different?
Because if you say no, then he doesn't start.
In this case?
Right. In that case,
But I guess
if
from
Sean
your-
has
to your point,
if
to
Sean
your-
has a vehicle that goes down,
I'm sorry,
No.
to Dwight's point, in terms of we don't have the information and it's not really needed right now, how is that different than
Well,
what
there's
we
a
did
little
previously?
bit. There
Okay,
is
that's
a
a,
distinction. One is, there's a history of spending the money.
that's a good point.
plus the other
I
thing
mean,
is
he doesn't have it now.
the other thing is if his rescue truck goes down and he needs to do a
Needs it right
repair and
away.
you want it right away,
Right.
you don't want to wait to get the
It's
price,
not
call a
active.
meeting, get scheduled thing. It could take a week or two.
Right.
You want him to fix it right away.
But I don't know what we haven't even seen what he did for phase one yet. We don't even know what he's done yet for phase one.
Fair enough. I can have him come
And my thing is just to get a copy of the report. We haven't even seen it.
Oh, I'm with you, because
And
that's
then,
why that's
and then
just so you
ask
know.
him to come at our next meeting.
It's not really
And
a
then he
formal
can-
report. It's just
No, but
findings.
and then he can review it with us.
Yeah.
And just so you understand, my point is, yeah, I'm with you completely.
No, I understand.
Because
I
that's
understand.
the reason I
I
voted the
understand.
way I did last time, so
Yeah.
obviously
No,
I'm
I
gonna do the
understand,
same thing this time.
but again, I'm just, I don't
Mhm.
think, I don't even know what phase two is and what is he gonna, what are the recommendations and where's he going?
I get it.
Okay. Fair enough.
Joe, any comment on that? Okay. So it sounds like the consensus of the board is to hold off.
Yeah, we'll hold off, yeah.
Would you like one?
Provided there's no
No,
real
we don't have
risk.
to- we're not gonna act
So we'll
on
do it
it.
as you asked for the February.
Yeah, we should
Right.
ask,
Right.
we should ask him to attend
Okay.
the next meeting.
Okay,
There's
cool.
not.
Okay, next one is 1920-14. Funding request number that one, $3,540 for general consulting for environmental services related to the Country Club of Woodbridge. This is from contingency. I believe this was related to the HRP.
That's correct. This was HRP who did work
Who had to do
relating
s-
to the country club.
So we could
For what
get to the
purpose?
contract.
For the contract, yeah.
That's
I would
it.
make one request, one recommendation, though. You could, actually, I thought about this, within the Board of Selectmen budget, there is a surplus. You could just change the line to the wage account, and then you don't have to take it from contingency.
Well, I would
Yeah,
sure feel
I
better
Wherever
about
you
that.
feel it's most.
Yeah.
I would feel better personally.
Yep.
The thing about contingency until
Yeah.
the SNOW
Make it a line
stops.
item transfer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do the line item
Okay.
transfer, yeah.
I would
Thank you.
definitely prefer that.
So I'll make a motion that we approve that with that friendly amendment to take it from
Okay.
that line item versus.
Second.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And 1920-15, funding request number, $20,000 to address diseased and storm damaged trees. Please see the attached memo for more encounters. Tony, do you have any further comments
Well,
on
this
this?
is
to
another
this memo?
situation where if Warren has a tree that he deems an emergency, and it comes to his attention, and he's out of funds, it's a situation where he doesn't wanna have to wait to come back for funds, and he's got a tree that's, and he's on notice that there's a dangerous tree. That's the
Well, it sounds like
reasoning.
he's already on notice there's dangerous trees.
But he takes care of him as soon as he's on notice that there's a dangerous tree.
Right, but I think one thing from my perspective that is missing from this is that where are they financially? It's the same
Right.
question I asked Sean.
Where are they financially on the
Yeah,
budget?
so in other words, this line item,
Uh-huh.
okay, how much was in the budget? How much have they spent so far? Are
Right.
they within $50 or is it $5,000? And, because I think that makes a difference in terms of when you move this money.
In terms of how much he spent so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what he has available to him.
Right. He doesn't have really much available. There's very little available, I can tell you that much.
He says he has a big list of trees. I don't know where they're located or how
Well,
emergent it is,
but he's
These are
saying he's
probably
only
like
gonna
the
do
ash trees,
emergency
the ones
removals.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying
Right.
with this money.
Right. There are some trees that, while he would take down if he had the funds, he doesn't deem it as an emergency or something that's
Right.
an imminent threat.
Right.
That's what he would address with these funds.
where are do we know where these trees are?
He
Are they
could,
along the roads or?
they're along roads, they're along the right of way, most of them.
Are they-
Right.
They're not
On
in
town
people's
property only
yards.
though.
It's town property
Town
only.
property.
Yeah, just town property. Not on, obviously on people's property,
Right.
but where it's just town property. And he would be able to recite, you know.
Would he be in a mess, or if we postpone this one till February, or? I don't have a feel for this.
Right, well, that's why.
I know,
mean,
but I worry, like with Sean.
The only thing I would add is if these are on the right of way.
And we get
Are
storms.
any of them susceptible to storms and bringing
Of course
down
they are.
power lines
Yes.
and everything
Ice,
else?
Of course
snow.
they are.
And the other thing about his budget is, Tony, we were just talking about this, Warren's
That's
budget is,
why, right,
he kind of lives with every single storm. Was he gonna use up his,
we've already transferred $8,000 so far this year.
For trees.
And, for trees. And, I wanna say his budget was maybe 30, if I'm correct.
So let me ask this, let's say he thinks this is all outsourced, we don't, this.
Correct, it's all
this money's
outsourced.
for vendors.
Correct, correct.
So do we have terms with these vendors? Like, can he say, I need this tree cut down?
We do, yeah,
have
yeah.
30 days to pay?
Definitely, yeah.
So we could always come back in a meeting and
I could do that.
allocate the money, right?
I could, yep,
It's another way to handle it. I
we
guess.
could. And then he can come to the next meeting and explain it more thoroughly.
Right. Because I'm
Sure.
sure Lewis and Spoon, they have to give you terms.
Yeah, there's
It's
30
not
days.
cash
We
on
do
the
30
barrel,
days. No,
they
no.
put it on the tree.
It's 30-day terms,
Give me the
yeah.
money, I'll cut down
Yeah,
the tree.
Right, it's 30-day terms. As long as he knows those parameters, that's fine.
okay.
That'll work.
So kind of the consensus of the board is to just hold off on this one and have him come in February?
Sure,
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay,
Yep.
we're not in a spending mode tonight, huh?
that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
I just don't want him not to be able to address a serious issue.
Yeah.
If it arises.
Seemingly he can't. Cut the
One
tree.
other thing,
Yeah.
we do have,
right.
don't forget,
Pay him 30
we
days.
have,
Right.
we have 3 budget meetings coming up. If we had to have an
You could always add it to that,
emergency
yeah.
at like
Yeah, special
5:30 at
meeting.
night.
You could, yep.
Be aware, I could call you all, save those
Exactly.
dates, give yourself a half an
Sure.
hour early, just in case, God forbid,
Sure.
you have an SNOW
That's fair.
storm or something.
Yep.
Okay. And last but not least, under you, that takes care of all funding requests, correct?
Yes.
Okay, next is the bid award for the old Firehouse Bay 2 roof. The town received 6, I don't know, do you wanna do this? or
Sure.
me too? Okay.
Yep.
thanks.
The town
Thank you.
received 6 bids for the roof replacement project for Bay 2. And this is to replace the roof over Bay 2 at the old firehouse. And of the 6 bids, the low bid, National Roofing and Solar, was not in accordance with our bid documents, where it was,
It was totally non-responsive.
totally
What was that,
non-responsive.
$10,000?
Right, that's the one, yeah.
No, he was non-responsive. I talked to him, he was
Right.
non-responsive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the second low bid, which was, had great references, at least the ones I checked, and, you've
I've
know
worked
them
with him
also.
and he's fine.
Yeah, is, J. Antonelli Roofing, and so that would be our proposal.
Okay, and this money is being paid for out of?
This is being paid for out of the, Firehouse, Restoration Fund.
Okay. So just to get further discussion, I'll make a motion that we award the bid for, to J. Antonelli Roofing for $38,411 for, repair of Bay 2 at the former firehouse. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any
And
other
this is
questions or
work that has to
discussion?
be done irrespective of.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, the
It's
first thing you
leaking
wanna
right
do
now.
is.
The roof is leaking, so you gotta
Yeah.
replace it.
Yeah.
It's almost 20 years old. It's
We
gotta-
replaced the copper roof, where we did Bay 3 just recently,
Right.
and so now this is the third and final.
Okay, and what is the timing on this, Tony, in terms of when the work would be done?
We can do it almost at any time. It's really weather.
Right, but what
Dependent.
is, are they committing to doing it in a certain time frame?
I haven't actually spoken to them about a
I've,
calendar.
I've talked to
Oh,
them,
okay.
and they can do it almost at any time. It's
Oh,
really
they-
based on
okay.
weather.
Okay,
So it's, if the weather clears up like this weekend, if it gets 60 degrees for a week, they'll be able to do it.
okay.
They can do it almost at any time.
Actually, they can't do it this weekend. Oh, no, they can. You're right, never mind. I was thinking
No, but
about
I'm just
something
saying, if the weather was like
Certifying
50s or
decision.
60s, they could do it almost
Yeah.
any time.
else. All right, I'll call it, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you. Other?
No, just at your desk is the audit, the financial report and grant report for fiscal year 2019. It's also on our website. And Scott will be coming to, our auditor will be coming to one of the combined budget meetings.
Okay.
I believe it's the 23rd, I think is the one he's coming to.
Okay.
To present the report and to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, number 10, Assistant Administrative Officer's Report. Application for planned event and action is appropriate.
So you all have at your table an email from me with the application that I submitted to myself about an event that I'm planning to hold on May 2nd on the library lawn in the Grove between the old firehouse and the library. It'll be an Earth Day style event. It's building on the Rid Litter Day that we've done in the past. And this is all going to be focused on reducing, reusing, and recycling. We're planning to hold a tag sale, a craft supply swap. We're hoping to have an electric vehicle demo, the mattress truck we plan to invite, the shredding truck. We'd like to have textile recycling as well, and we're also hoping to do electronic recycling. So it should be a really nice one-stop shop for folks interested in learning how to reduce, reuse, and recycle. And we're just in the beginning stages of planning for this, so I'm not sure yet if we're going to have any musical entertainment or anything else of that sort.
Says yes here.
I said yes just in case.
Oh, okay.
And I'm also hoping to have a food truck.
And I'm sorry, what day is that? Oh,
Saturday, May 2nd.
May 2nd, okay, great.
Betsy, this is the event that last year the dog park also, folks were there.
So that happened in June.
Okay.
And I'm hoping to do a separate event that first weekend in June as well, but that is separate from this.
Okay.
This one is really just about reducing, reusing, and recycling.
Okay. No certificate of insurance?
I think we're already insured.
Even for the food vendors? Shouldn't we get certificates from the food
Yes,
vendors?
yes, but the town is not submitting a certificate of insurance
But
to
you're
the
gonna
town.
get them
From the vendor.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe we ought to alter this
Yeah, we could.
for, just to make sure there's a distinction of that between the person who's actually sponsoring the event and then any vendors and all that.
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Any other suggestions?
Great.
And action is appropriate. I'll make a motion that we approve the application. Second, thank you. Any discussion on any further?
Just a quick question.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
sorry, and I might have missed you said it. Is it, you know how they have the shredder truck?
We plan to invite the shredder truck. There's a few other trucks that we'll invite. I'm not sure that we'll be able to get all of them, but that's the goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have some others, like,
Yeah, there's a
the other
couple
thing I
different
got a bunch
shredding
of is
companies.
batteries.
We're also looking to get a mattress truck. We're hoping for a textile truck.
Okay,
Goodwill
excellent.
might be there. And there's an electronic recycling company also.
Thank you.
So ideally, it'll just be
Okay.
one
Huge.
centralized spot where you can bring all the things that you usually cannot take to the transfer station.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, correct? All right, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Betsy.
I just
Okay.
have a few other things to go over
Sure.
quickly. So, just wanted you all to be aware, last summer, there was a group of residents who formed a complete street team. And they talked about areas where pedestrians and cyclists frequently use the roads in town. And so they came up with a map that I've modified. But pink is where cyclists frequently are, and sometimes pedestrians also. So they're hoping that we can have wider shoulders there to accommodate safer pedestrian and cycling use. And green is where they thought it would be useful to have sidewalks. So if you notice, they're mostly down in the business district, and up here where you've got things to walk to, like the high school, the library, Fitzgerald, and the tot lot and the fields over here on Center Road. And I've created a survey that you all have at your place as well to get additional feedback from residents on these types of amenities. If there's other places they think that it would be useful, if they concur with the map, if they disagree. And I just wanted you all to be aware of that. I'm going to be posting the maps and the surveys at town buildings and also online. And once I've collected all the data, I think I'm going to leave it up through the end of February. Once I get all of that data, I'm planning to create a report that we'd be able to use going forward to think about where and how to make the street safer for people to walk and bike along.
So most of those roads
our
with
state
respect
roads.
to recycling our state roads.
Yes, they are. And if you've driven on those roads lately, a lot of the white lines that demarcate where the shoulders are quite faded. And the reason I'm doing this now is because I want the state, if people agree, I would like to ask the state to move those white lines when they repaint the road to accommodate the wider shoulders. Because that's really all it takes is where do you put that white line to create the shoulder.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm wondering, don't they have certain
They have,
parameters?
Yes,
right,
they do.
of width.
But
They gotta
Yes.
have
you're
certain
saying
width.
we do have the width to create.
I'm not sure, I haven't measured the width of the road, and some of the roads aren't consistent, so some roads are wider in some spots and more narrow in other spots. And so we can make the
Well,
request
it's
and they'll
worth
be
a
able to,
shot.
exactly, they'll be able to tell us where it is feasible and where it's not feasible. Yeah. So just wanted you all to be aware of that.
Does it help us in any way in terms of getting grants or things for sidewalks and stuff like that?
Absolutely. So assuming there are grants available,
Right.
it's always useful to have a plan that says, I'm not just making this up because you have funding, but
We've
a
been
wide
doing
group
this
of
for a while.
residents have agreed that this is important to them.
Thank you.
And then I just also wanted to let you.
One thing real
Oh, yeah.
quick. On item 5, you said, how often do you bike when you add walk to on Woodbridge
That's a
roads?
separate question. That's question 1.
Okay,
It's
all right,
pa-
I
it's
see it. all right.
parallel between walking
Yeah,
and
it's,
biking.
Yeah.
okay.
Because not everyone does both.
Okay.
Just wanted to make you all aware that the follow-up closer to the holiday guide is out. It's about health and wellness. Now that we're all done with our holiday cookies, a lot of people are starting to think about trying to get healthy. So this is out around town at businesses and at town hall. And the other thing I'm working on is a cross-promotion piece where any local business can submit a listing that they'd have a promotion going on for the month of February. A local businesswoman saw something very similar in another town that was successful, and the idea is, it's a very rough draft, but any business that would be listed in here, if you're at your barber and they have this in here, you might see other businesses that you're not aware of in town, and vice versa. So the idea is to try and really boost awareness of all the businesses that we have, since many of them are not very visible from the street. And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Where will those be placed?
These would be at any business that's participating, and they'd be around town and online as well.
Okay, great. Sort of wonderful progress.
Thank you.
Really good.
Start, but, you have in your packet, we put on the agenda recommendations for use of the old firehouse. We had talked about last month coming to some kind of a conclusion at this meeting as to what we're gonna do with the old firehouse so we can proceed. As you all know, we had a fire in 2006 in that building, and several improvements have been made, but now it's time to make recommendations for what we're gonna put in the bays and upstairs. There's a letter from the community council about some suggestions. There's also a petition signed by, I believe, 77 people. I can't remember exactly. 76, not necessarily residents, but folks. Right. Yeah. Asking to have the fitness center be relocated to Bay 3 of the old Woodbridge Firehouse. One gentleman added a comment, we request to stay here, I guess meaning across the street here of the, okay, and, let's see. So that's where we can start with that. I guess,
Can you also talk maybe about some of the comments that you received, Beth?
I sure could. Some of them are in the package, but a lot of folks weren't, right, okay.
But I think just for the
Sure.
record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the record, I did receive, they're in the packet, and hopefully you all read, but a lot of folks, well, not a lot of folks, but most of the people who wrote to me took time to ask that we seek to keep it a community center of some kind. They wanted, obviously, to have a coffee house or something like that, which, as we recall several years ago, we thought about doing, and it would require a zoning change. So at one point, there was a discussion, and we met with, I think Tom Brandt from Amity High School came last month, was it last month
Yeah,
or the
this
month
month,
before?
yep.
And suggested that perhaps the transition program could provide some of that without doing a zoning change where they serve coffee or muffins or
Right.
juice or whatever, to that kind of thing, and make it more of a community space. So, giving all that, I think it's important that we try to come up with a decision as to what we're gonna do with Bays 1, or at least make recommendations to the architect, is that correct?
Right.
How does this work? Maybe you
You
should.
have to decide, you have to vote on what you want to put there.
The
Right.
u-
Decide
the-
which
the
one to put
use,
there.
to really
The use.
describe.
The use, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be
Doesn't
specific,
no,
right?
The use.
So I think even if one of the bays addressed kind of the community focus, and yes, you can't call it a coffee house, but it's really a place for people to meet, gather, go after they take a walk, around Fitzgerald. Some
A
meeting
place of
room
assembly,
space.
basically.
Right,
Okay.
where people could hold an event.
Right.
Things like that. There really is a tough time getting meeting space.
Definitely.
And we really could use additions to that. And I know even if it's for 4 or 5 people who want to get together for a meeting, there's 1 or 2 rooms at the library and they're often taken. So it could be co-working space. I mean, there are lots of ways to make this a community room. So I think in terms of describing that to the architect would be important. So it's not just tables and chairs.
Okay, so do we vote, what I'm confused about is, should we each make a suggestion for the bays, or should we do it all together as a group, or what are your, okay, why don't we start this way? What are your ideas for Bay 1, Bay 2, Bay 3? And, wait a minute, do we all agree that perhaps we should encourage the transition program to go upstairs?
Yes, I don't, yeah,
Does anybody have any,
objections.
we're talking about the uses of the old firehouse
Yeah, I
and.
don't have any objection to the high school. That was
Using the
Okay,
upstairs.
we have to come up with some kind of negotiating, some kind of contract with them, whether or not they're going to pay rent
Yes, that's.
and all of that.
Yeah,
We've
well,
met with Jen Byers
they'll pay
several.
rent.
Whether or not,
No, they will pay rent.
I don't like
I
that
can't make people do it. I'm
Well,
saying,
no, but what I'm saying
they're
is
not
I
coming if
know
they
that
don't.
We're as in favor of the whole.
they're not
point.
coming if they don't. I'll put
Right.
it that way, okay?
You know, 'cause, you know,
When we work on the building, we're just gonna make the space, as an assembly or a space where we're not gonna be doing the specific items that would require.
no
a
tenant
transition.
fit out.
Right, we're just doing the general,
Right.
Even on the second floor?
On the second floor, yeah. If they wanna.
Well,
put
I
in a-
understand,
Right,
yeah.
but-
If they wanna put
I
in a
understand like
washer
a
and
full-time,
dryer and all
full-
that
Yes,
stuff.
but
kitchen.
But the
If you wanna-
architect is gonna need to know
Right.
that
Yes,
in terms
they'll
of
need
the
to know it,
placement.
yes,
So it's
yes.
really talking
Yeah.
to the director of that
Yes.
program
Oh,
about
absolutely.
how
That would-
they envision
that would be
using
the
that
next step,
space.
yeah.
Right.
But to Beth's, I'm sorry, Joe.
What about the request from the fire department for that?
well, we're gonna talk about that. We're just talking the second
We're
level
just
right
talking
now.
upstairs
Yeah, okay,
first,
so
yeah.
I'll mention that.
Okay.
Yeah, so to Beth's point, I think we're all in agreement with the transition program,
Okay.
the way
Yeah,
we,
that's fine.
the way
That's
it's
the
been,
use.
yeah, for the
That's the
second
use.
floor.
I would personally also like to advocate for a possible use at night perhaps for town use, if the.
Well, that's what he said. He said it's basically gonna be used for the day,
Only, right. but
only
we
for
gotta
the
make
day, and then
right.
it would
Correct.
open up. So if there was a larger group,
Okay.
they can
That's
use the
correct.
meeting
Yeah.
room upstairs.
Yeah.
And there's another, and there is another
Right.
room
That's
upstairs,
correct.
Okay,
conference
I
room.
think that would be helpful. 'cause
So that
we-
was,
we're-
and we can then, because
Right.
most of the meetings are at night anyhow.
Right,
So whatever plan is proposed for the second floor will take into consideration whatever they need for the transition program.
Correct.
right, for the
Okay.
daytime use.
Right, correct.
Okay,
I'm good?
That's good.
But I think if they're gonna be renting the space, we need to find out from them, can other people actually occupy the space?
That's a good point.
that's my point.
Yeah, I think a discussion needs to be had with them
Right.
about that.
We mentioned it a couple times with Jen,
Yeah.
Right.
but that will have to be in the agreement,
Right.
as to
Oh, yeah.
what we're gonna do.
Right.
Yep. I just wanted to put that out there and keep
Sure.
it
Yeah.
on the, okay. I think we could probably start with Bay 3 first, because it's the largest one, and we have,
Excuse me.
nope,
How are we going to do this? People just going to give their ideas? Is there going to be a vote on, yes, we're going to designate the second floor for the Amity transition program? with Sandy moving it and somebody else seconding it, or are you going to do it as a group?
You want to do them all separately?
Well, the second floor, I think, is different than the rest of it. I think the second floor we should vote on
Okay.
as the second floor.
All right, I agree. Does
We
that
don't
sound
have
good, Jerry?
anything on the agenda for action.
Just
Can we make a
recommendations.
I'd like to make a motion. Can we do that, Jerry?
2/3 vote, you could add things to the agenda.
Okay, can I add that to the agenda? I
I'm
missed
just-
that.
I'm
It got
just
by, no, you're
dotting the
right. It
i's
got
and-
by me.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. So I'll make a motion that we take action as, to add,
amend the agenda.
amend the agenda to add action as appropriate
As appropriate.
under, recommendations for use of the old firehouse. Is
Item
there a
11.
second?
I'll second
Okay, any discussion on that? All in favor? We have more than 2/3. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Joe. So on that note, I'll make a motion that we move forward with the proposal to come up with some kind of proposal or to have the Amity transition space occupy the second floor with all appropriate negotiations, contracts, and everything that was discussed tonight.
All the i's dotted, t's crossed, and everything
That too.
else.
Yeah, I think, but the two main ones would be, or the three that they would sign a lease of some term.
Correct.
Not 1 year. I mean, I don't wanna call it long term, but we have to have some
Correct.
term.
Yeah.
They're paying rent,
Correct.
and we would, and the other thing is, we're saying that we want the ability to use it after hours for the town.
Right.
So I think those things should be in the motion, because
Okay.
that's kind of what our
I'll accept that as a
consensus is.
friendly amendment to the motion. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else want to change it any other way or add?
No, that's fine.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that takes care of that. Bay 3, I think we'll start with that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
In terms of, instead of designating which bay, in other words, we're gonna be having an architect. So we're paying them to determine what's the best space for the uses that we agree should go there. Do we really need to specify the bays?
Have we hired an architect?
Pardon me?
No, not yet.
We haven't hired an architect.
Not yet.
No, but that's the whole point.
I don't know.
Because,
No, I understand your point. I didn't know whether we had.
We haven't, no, not for this phase.
Okay.
What's your
Is that-
thoughts, guys?
Well, how do we handle, for example, that the fire department needs a bay?
Well, that's different from Sandy's question. She wants to know, should we pick a bay for certain things, or just say,
here are the uses
here are the
we want.
uses, find them and put them in the bays?
So we could add that.
Well, I guess the broader question might be exactly what are we doing here? Because I guess we're saying that we have a consensus that we would like to proceed with the Amity upstairs.
Correct.
And now we go downstairs and what are we, I mean, I think Sandy's point is well taken. If we're gonna hire someone to spec it out, and the alternative is we tonight vote that we want A in Bay 3 and B in Bay 2.
And it won't work.
But what does that vote mean?
Right.
Suppose the architect tells us, nah, you can't do that, or
Right.
we change our, I guess
I'm
I'm just
not
asking, what are we
wed to any
voting
bay
on?
for, I have
So-
specific
so
ideas
what-
as to what I want to
What
do,
we wanna
but
do, what
maybe.
we wanna put together, first question that was asked of me was, well, what's the use gonna be?
But who asked?
If I said to our architect, if
The
you're gonna
architect,
submit us a
okay.
proposal to,
Right.
renovate the rest of the building.
Right.
he said,
So
well,
we're,
what's
so
the
we're
use?
voting on suggested uses.
Uses,
So that he
that's
can
what
ask-
I
there's-
think.
There's ventilation,
Yeah.
there's heat, there's all kinds of,
Right.
depends what the use.
I didn't want us or anybody else to think we're voting on, it's gonna be this.
Well,
you know
right.
what I mean?
Like I understand a fitness center probably has a different,
Right, but it could
footprint.
be that based on where the architect best thinks it
Could be.
would fit,
Could
that
be.
it would be a different design of
So
the
your
mechanicals.
suggestion is
Right.
pick three, if there's 3 bays, pick 3 suggested uses for those bays and
Right.
see how it washes
Right,
out.
right. And
think
look,
that
we
makes
we
sense.
could have 4 uses and say, how would that work? How would you suggest it work in there?
Splitting one of the bays or something like that.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, we're not architects.
Sure. Good God,
So
no.
how do we, how do we ensure that the fire department has the space that they need?
We have to talk
we'll
about
talk
that.
about- we'll
That's
talk
a
about it.
separate issue.
Right.
That's totally separate. From
If
what
that's
we
one of the
think our
uses that we decide,
Yeah.
that will go forward. So I will propose that we move the fitness center from the current place to
The old fire.
the old firehouse, period,
Okay.
That's one.
as
Well-
one of the uses.
It's a use, that's a good word.
It's a use.
Because you said,
Right.
but you were proposing that we move it. I think that's bad language, because we're not voting on moving it, we're just voting on a suggested use, if appropriate, at the
Fair
firehouse.
point.
Right.
I
the old
would,
fire-
I would
So the
propose,
move would land
all right,
with
I would propose
Correct.
that we have a fitness center as one of the uses at the old firehouse.
Suggested
proposed use,
for the
right.
old
Suggested use at the old firehouse, okay?
Okay.
Does anyone have any other suggestions? I don't want to just do it myself.
Right, no, I have a suggestion.
So I'm
that
gonna
we-
write them all down.
Okay, that we create an exhibition space, that could incorporate the antique fire truck. It could have, art exhibitions. It could be, we had a presentation from, I can't remember his name, about things that he found in Woodbridge, the archaeologist.
Right, yeah.
Right. So I think there are lots of uses for that, and people could come and actually take a look at those things. There could be exhibits that people put up. That's one suggestion.
Okay. Joe?
I have another suggestion for the fire department to use it, pay for their equipment that they need.
I don't agree with that. I think that that's why the shed was proposed behind the fire department, and they need to figure this out.
Well, you gotta realize too, is that what they were promised when they reduced it $5,000, 5,000 square feet, and they were promised additional space up to 5,000 square feet. The shed is only like 1,600 square feet. They are gonna need probably bay one for not only the antique, but probably for additional storage of
I
their
would have to
equipment.
see the specifics of that, and I would have
Okay.
to see why they can't use all the room in the basement. I'd rather pay money so that they could open that up and store things down there than use the old firehouse. If we're really designating the old firehouse as a community center of sorts, the best that we can do, that doesn't mean storage, to me.
Mika, next.
I think meeting area is very important.
Right.
You know, it's some area where people can get, like you said, can gather, where you can reserve the space for a particular event, where the library can also set up a program, you know, if necessary, that type of thing there. I know that the library room was kind of a luxury at first, and now it's used extensively. And, you know, I think another area like that would also be used significantly.
Well, one of the concepts that the community council discussed is for residents to be able to have events there, like a kid's birthday party. And, you know, they could rent the space. We would figure out actually how to do that. But that there isn't room like that in town.
Never even occurred to me, but.
Is there a proposal for a kitchen on the first floor now at this point, or we're gonna have the one upstairs, right? That's it?
Just the one upstairs.
Right. I'm just suggesting like a birthday party. Would you need a kitchen? I don't know.
Well, maybe you have to bring everything with you,
Yeah,
that's all.
okay. All right, I'm just thinking.
Provides that.
What?
Recreation provides birthday.
Oh, okay.
The assembly room at Beecher South,
Uh-huh.
we have full contingency of weekend birthday parties.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Have your party there.
She
Wow.
can't hear you.
I don't
back
have
there.
any grandkids.
You need more advertising.
And that's what we're working on.
I know.
She's not getting John's.
Oh, she can't, whenever you speak from the audience, come up to the mic,
here.
please, sorry. Thank you. Okay, so so right now we have a fitness center, exhibition space, antique fire truck, including exhibit space. Joe proposed fire department equipment. Do you know how much space they need? Is there the square footage that would be necessary?
So the chief is here.
Oh, sorry, Sean. Could you come up to the mic? Because I can't, if you need 5,000 and you're getting what for the,
We're getting 1,600 for the shed. It's 40 by 40. And then
There's
there's
not gonna
minimal
be-
after you put the antique and the
There's
old.
not gonna be 3,400 square feet
No,
there.
no, but he's gonna.
And what do you
use-
need it for that you can't put in the,
When the firehouse was originally designed, it was at 25,000 feet. And at that point, it was cut down to 20,000 square feet with the understanding that the old firehouse would be the overflow. The rest of the building would be the overflow on that, which would take up to 5,000 feet. The shed came up in talk about 10 years ago, and it started the foundations in for the shed about 10 years ago, and that was gonna be to put the hazmat trailer and some of the other equipment, hose, supplies, and stuff like that into that. We would still need Bay 1, even at that time when we talked about that and we approved the shed and we started the foundation, to put the antique fire truck there along with other equipment. So we have a light trailer, we have a generator trailer, we have a heat trailer, we have multiple other things that have to be stored inside that would go into basically Bay 1. So along with the shed in Bay 1, it would be adequate storage. That's where we're able to shorten the shed in back of the firehouse down to roughly 40 by 40. But the equipment has to be housed, and it's got to be temperature controlled. A lot of it. The hose, even the hose could be in extreme heat in a fire. It still has to go out and get tested at that point, but you can't leave it in extreme heat and you can't leave it in extreme cold, or say over the winter, because you can have issues with it. Along with that, all the hazmat equipment.
Would you need access to that space on an emergency basis?
All the time.
How is that consistent with
community center?
Right.
Because if we were to take Bay 1, we would have access to Bay 1, and we have the overhead doors, and we go directly in and out of those, just how we do it now.
Right, but people, you'd be trucks, emergency trucks coming.
It's not emergent. We're not housing first line equipment there. We're housing all the equipment that we would need to take to a scene for a drawn out scene, like the light trailer, generator trailer, or heat trailer, whatever that may be. It would all come out of that building. Right now, we're also housing all the speedy dry over there, water over there, and everything else, all the day-to-day supplies that would basically be going out to that scene. It's not gonna, when the tone drops, and if we have a motor vehicle accident, wherever, we don't need to go over there right away to get a piece of equipment to go out. It's more all the,
What if there was a big community meeting or something like that? How would,
it wouldn't affect it because we would looking to occupy the front bay. And the reason why the front bay is, the front bay had the shorter doors. That's why the shed was gonna be built, because a hazmat trailer couldn't fit in the front bay. It had to go into the shed with a taller overhead door. The antique would fit in the existing old firehouse part, along with the miscellaneous equipment that would be able to go in there.
Sean, what do you see as options? If this is gonna be a community center or intended to be a community center and we wanted to move it in that direction, what would be the options for you from an equipment standpoint?
In regards to the fire department?
Yeah, in regards to the equipment
we need one bay. And
No, I'm saying, if you can't have that, or if it's decided that it's gonna be community center only, so to speak, what does that mean to the equipment, and what are the other, where else can you go?
We need to we either need to make the shed bigger, which we're on a small footprint, we're on a smaller footprint as it is. We really truly need, when it was all designed and we had to go, Ed Sheehy had to go through inland wetlands, and we had to go through this whole process, and I mean, everybody was involved back then.
So when you say smaller footprint, you're referring to the
shed that the foundation's in the back of the old firehouse.
The pad.
42 by, what is it, 42 by 42?
Something like that, 42 by 42.
Yeah.
About 1,600 square feet roughly.
So, are we suggesting, or do I not understand? In other words, even when
We
the new
can't fit all the
firehouse was
equipment
built-
into the shed
I got it.
as it is.
But no, what I'm getting at is when it was built,
Yes.
the firehouse, and with the intention of putting in a shed on the pad, and the pad was what it is.
The shed was after an afterthought, because the idea was when the firehouse was being built, and Beth can tell you that, the overflow would go into the old firehouse.
That was the intent.
Yes.
That was the 5,000
I
square feet.
do have to say that at the time, that was the thing, is, I don't know if I was on the board or on the fire commission, I can't
Right.
remember, but that was the intent at the time. Now, this is a different time, I'm just saying, different board. So,
So isn't there empty space in the basement of the building?
Of the new
Of the
firehouse?
Of the new firehouse, yeah.
There's not. We're actually storing some stuff like the office stuff, and there's a small gym downstairs and some other stuff downstairs. The mechanicals are downstairs. But even if we wanted to say store the hose downstairs, even though we have an elevator, it's a passenger elevator. It's a small elevator. It's not even as big as the elevator. It's a smaller elevator than Town Hall even has. And there's no way to get the racks and everything up and down in the base from the basement to store all the heavy equipment.
So couldn't we investigate, not necessarily that elevator, but a different way to exit from the basement where you could take out that equipment?
so it's underground, isn't it?
It's underground.
Yeah, I know it's underground.
I mean, the only access is 2 stairwells, exits. Once you get down, there's 2 stairwells up and the elevator. There's no other access into that space.
I just want to say, you know, they do an awful lot for the people of Woodbridge. They've proven that there was a commitment to give them certain space. We should give it to them. I mean, we're not talking about fitness center or community center. Yeah, we're talking about, you know, the service we provide to the people of Woodbridge, almost in a life and death situation. So
Well, there's some truth to that, but on the other hand, we have to balance what they need with other uses there, unless we're gonna say the original intent was to give them the new firehouse and the old firehouse, which I certainly would be against, but, so we do have to.
No, that was the intent when the building was proposed at 25,000 feet,
Might have
and it
been.
was dropped down to 20,000 feet, and the intention was to move, to put the overflow in the new firehouse, in the old
I
firehouse.
don't doubt that, because I don't know it. I'm not questioning it, but I'm just saying right now, intent or no intent, I certainly wouldn't be in favor of you having, or the fire department having that big new space and then the entire old space without someone going through an analysis of what's required.
We're not looking for the whole space.
No, I know.
Okay.
I know that. That's why I'm saying
Yeah.
we have to balance what you're looking for.
Right,
with
and-
the community use.
Right, and that's how and
If
I
we
think
can.
Tony was part of those meetings. The shed was based on keeping Bay 1 of the old firehouse, not Bay 2, not Bay 3, where we were occupying, keeping Bay 1, and that's how the space study came up to this 42 by 42 area in back of the new firehouse.
I mean, I
This
think
is-
we leave it as a suggestion, and I think we need a detailed account of what would be stored there and how we.
yeah, I remember meeting with Aaliyah a year or so ago, and I said, please give me sort of a map as to how, I don't know if he had a chance to do that. I talked to him, and I didn't think he did, but as of now, to give us a detailed sort of proposal for what goes in the old, new, and, you know, to help us be better informed as to why the space.
My way of thinking is it's almost as if you have to consider the one thing we all agree on, and actually the way to fund it, anything, is the transition program. So how comfortable are they and are we with having students or whatever in that area, if you will, if you need fire apparatus and things of that nature? Or how comfortable would you be?
We're not talking fire apparatus, we're talking support equipment here. Between the light trailer, generator trailer, and some of the other equipment that has
And that's what I mean. I
to
think-
be fit in over there.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
If we have a good understanding as to, all right, you know, maybe once a
You
week.
have to remember, all
maybe
these
once, you know,
rooms, I'm assuming are gonna be locked and they're gonna be open for
But no, I'm
specific
yeah.
purposes.
The concern, I think, would be just more the people on the outside and the activity and traffic and pedestrian type, car and pedestrian type activities more so than once
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
inside.
If you put tables outside for people to sit at, and the fire department's coming to get equipment to.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be coming, but. they
We're not
wouldn't
gonna be coming in the parking lot.
entrance to the
The
old
entrance-
firehouse is by the Grove. That's
No,
where everybody,
it's by
a lot of
the
them is gonna be
green.
parking.
Yeah, it's over by the green.
It's
Yeah,
over
right.
by the green
That
and
little
by the
island
green.
thing there.
Yes.
Where the
Well, you
grove
don't know
is.
what'll get designed in terms of other entrances for other uses, I mean.
Well, if we know that that's.
Guys, we're talking about emergency equipment that we need on a ready basis. We can't just pack it in where we have to unpack everything to get the equipment that
Oh,
we
I
need.
understand that.
And that's
No.
basically what we're not even dealing with it now, because right now we're spread throughout that old firehouse between Bay 3, Bay 1 right now, because there's work going on in Bay 2 and other things, and we're moving equipment around, plus we have 3 storage trailers sitting outside that have equipment in it. This is, we designed the 42 by 42 pad with the shed out back to offset it along with keeping Bay 1. If we're looking to get rid of Bay 1, we need to create a space close to the firehouse that we have readily access to get the equipment out of. I mean, that's not, that's just how it is here. I mean, unless we want to start taking out part of the slab in the back and the foundation and making it bigger to offset the thing, but then we'd have to go back through approvals, through planning and zoning, inland wetland, and everything else. This is what we need to do, the job we need to do. I mean, we're not asking for the world here. I mean,
What I would propose.
and basically, one of the bays
Don't
is
beat
gonna
me
put
up.
the antique truck in the original building, where it should go, because that's the original 1938 building, 1938 truck.
Is that a separate bay, or is that the bay you're talking about?
No, that's the
using?
same bay we're talking about. So the truck would go on one side and our equipment goes on the other side, and we could
How
put some
much
stuff
space
around
is
the back.
that? How much space is that Bay 1, do you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't.
Ballpark? Dwight, do you know?
I think it's probably,
1,200.
I would say 25 feet by 25,
So
like
you need,
wide.
if we kept the antique fire
25,
truck
30
there.
feet.
25 wide by maybe 35, 40, maybe 1,200, 1,300 square feet. It's
So-
not a big space.
Right, so if
It's
the
not a big
antique
space.
fire truck took half of that,
It does.
you need 600 additional feet storage,
Don't
correct?
hold me to that number. I don't know
All
what
right,
that number
ish,
is.
ish, okay, all
Well,
right.
but, you know, and Sean, understand, we're thinking of ideas as to what to do with this. And based on what you're saying, all of a sudden, everything we were thinking is saying, no, we really have 2 bays, period. 2 bays, let's figure out what we gotta do with them.
Right, we need one bay, and we don't need the long bay in the back. We don't need the bay on Newton Road. The bay up front would be sufficient for what we're doing.
And that's the original.
That's the original
We
firehouse.
don't have another option for the antique truck anyway, right?
I don't.
So I mean, it sounds
No.
like, if the truck has to stay there, we really don't have an option. What's the option? So you can't have the rest of the space? I mean,
That's-
logically, I'm thinking, now that we went
Yeah,
through all this, if
but
the
it's,
truck has to stay there.
it's the use of the space. So
Right,
if
but-
it's an exhibition space, the antique fire truck's on exhibition.
Right,
Okay.
so a lot of detail, no, I understand totally.
Okay.
The antique
That's why
fire truck goes
I asked
out.
if it was needed in an emergency.
Antique
because
fire
if it's
truck.
not-
Goes out
No, not the
grades
truck,
and
but the
everything
Yeah,
else.
other
and-
it's
equipment.
true.
Right.
But the point is, leave it as a suggestion. Sean or whomever has to fill in the details. What equipment's going in there? When do you need it? How do you have to get it?
It's there now, is what I'm
And
understanding.
then
I'm
we
sorry?
have to make a decision at some point.
And-
whether-
right.
Am I
They're
correct?
doing,
in
they're
understanding
doing
that
work
it's
on the
there
old they're doing work on the old building now, so it's sporadically spread out through
now?
the
Throughout
entire,
the whole,
yeah.
the whole.
Right.
Got it.
Have we really looked at, though, can the shed in the back be bigger? Can there be other trailers in the back there? I mean, that's closer to the firehouse than going across the street. I mean, what can we do with the current layout, of where the new firehouse is? It's not so new anymore.
We can't really do much, because we're on a, you have the Fitzgerald property, but remember, the firehouse was built on such a tight space, and we had to be 100 feet off of this, we had to be so
There's a
far
lot
off
of
of
wetlands
wetlands.
back there
There's a
I mean, I
wetlands
think
in
we
the back. It's all
already
wetlands in the
went
back.
up and beyond when we got the shed approved, and that was no easy task. And it was at 42 by 42, and that was the biggest we could go there without impeding so much of a percentage of wetlands, and it was a compromise between the town and conservation at the time and everything else. I don't think we're gonna be able to revisit that. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Okay, so we gotta do that.
Madam Chair?
Sure.
You know, the use that they're advocating is quite different from a community center or something for us, or the upstairs. This is, you know, you're talking about being available, life and death situation. I hate to dramatize it. They do a marvelous job. They volunteer their time. They have proven the need for the space. Let's give it to them.
The issue is that are we gonna make it a community space, or are we gonna make it a combination community
You could
space
make-
and
There's
fire?
no reason, I'm all in favor of community space, and I think everybody here is, to have it. It's just that one bay, we still need to store the equipment there. I mean, I think you're gonna add meeting rooms, probably most likely to Bay 2. You're gonna have, it sounds like you're gonna have meeting rooms along with Amity upstairs. So you're probably gonna add at least 4 or 5 meeting rooms to the space now.
Or open
I
space
mean-
that you can have, you know, gatherings and all that down in one of the bays too.
Why don't we just leave it as a suggested use? In the meantime, the town does have to see if there's alternatives
Right.
to it, number one.
I think it would be helpful to have a proposal from the commission or you
The proposal.
as to what
the
specifically.
I don't have it, but the proposal, we paid for this. The town paid for this probably about 10 years ago. That's how they came up with the size of the space. They talked about putting this thing in the center of the Grove over across the street. They talked about how big this has got to be. They took the equipment, they based it on this. All the work was done, and the town has all this documentation.
One of the suggestions from 10 years ago was to have the fitness center be in Bay 2 and Bay 3. So
I'm not
I'm just saying,
debating
some of that is now moot.
But the equipment,
But I
the
think
equipment's
at
not
this
shrinking.
point, at this point, Sean, I think that to really settle this, we do need to understand which equipment. So what would go in the shed,
Okay.
okay, and what do you need space for in the current bay? I mean, I think we have the right to ask that, and I think that
I'm
it
not,
would
I'm
be
not
help-
I'm not debating it. I'm doing
Okay.
the best we can do
Right,
here.
but
mean,
I don't think we should rely on necessarily what we had 10 years ago, today, okay? What do you need to put in the shed, and what do you need to put in the old firehouse?
Bottom line is you need the equipment. There's no place else to put it, and what we're saying
It's
is.
gotta be housed. It can't sit outside.
Right.
It's gonna rot. It's gonna corrode. We're gonna have other issues.
And I don't think-
We all agree on that. We all agree.
Environment.
Yeah.
If we don't wanna do that, that's fine.
No.
You guys gotta
No.
tell me what we're gonna do
That's not what
here.
we're-
I'm
that's
not an
not-
architect. I can't draw the
No,
thing
no,
up.
but that's
I'll
not
tell
what
you.
we're saying.
I'll give you the whole list of equipment. If you guys have a better way of storing it and packing it in where it's safe for the guys at 2:00 in the morning to come get it out, hey, all to you. This was, we've been bounced around. We got the firehouse, which we're really appreciative of. It got cut down 5,000 feet. We're doing the best of it. We had the other building. We were able to spread the stuff out between Bay 1, Bay 2, and Bay 3. A couple years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we closed off Bay 3 we got rid of the overhead doors. Now we're using 2 double doors to get equipment in and out, which is a little problematic. We're using Bay 2 and we're using Bay 1 to put the bigger stuff in so we can roll it in so it's not a hazard.
So for.
We can do this. It's,
Just for full disclosure,
yes,
what was the square footage on the existing old firehouse?
10,000 feet.
So, so we went up 10,000 feet instead of, 10,000 square feet instead of 25,000 square feet.
You
Or
couldn't-
15,000 square
you
feet. We were gonna increase
yes.
the square footage by 15,000 originally,
No.
was originally planned, and
Yes.
instead we only did
Yes, we were gonna make it a
10,000.
little bit bigger. We had to
Okay.
make it bigger.
Yeah, so we made it bigger,
Yes.
so, okay. I just to make sure I
But
understand.
remember, because with that statement, people can also look as, well, you fit everything in 10,000 feet. We didn't fit everything in 10,000 feet. At the time we moved, we actually had the 10,000 feet used, plus we had about 15 storage trailers out in the parking lot. And we had a lot of temperature control units, we had a lot of stuff.
Temperature
And it was,
control units
to get
now.
equipment out, you have to yank half the trailer out to get the piece of equipment that you
Where are you
need
gonna put 'em?
and put it back in.
You know,
And believe me when I tell you, we weren't the ones
but you can't-
really supportive of even using the old firehouse, because it does become problematic, because we have to take a piece of truck off a scene, whether it be either the squad 10 or squad 4, go back and pick it up, or we have to have somebody come across from the firehouse, cross Center Road, which we do now, to go get the equipment in the old firehouse. And then if anybody has seen the hose racks, and you got to wheel those across the street, those are probably about 500, 600, 700 pounds, and that's no joke. And when you're wheeling it across the road at 2, 3 in the morning, it is a little dangerous. So we like to put a piece of truck out there. So yes, is certain things going to come across the street to the shed? Absolutely. Would the hose be one of them? Absolutely. The light trailer, the generator trailer, it's not a critical thing where it's not a life safety issue for us where we have to cross the street and then roll it back across. We can pull up to the old firehouse, hook up to it, and pull and go to the scene. And then when we get back,
And it
we
wouldn't
put it
roll
away.
emergency
Absolutely.
right
So
first
there's
out.
more to this
Okay.
than, well, we could put this here, we could put this there.
Yeah.
There's also safety issues that we have to consider with the firefighters so that they don't get hurt. That's what I'm
My
saying to
tendency
you.
is also to look at it, is always to try to look at it in a situation where if somebody comes up to me, one of the residents come up to me as a selectman and say, hey, why did you do this versus that?
Absolutely.
That we have the information to be able to say what we did, and that's basically the only thing we could ask for, so.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so, at this point, we have to make a decision, or we don't, for this night. We have 4 options: fitness center, exhibition space, including the antique fire truck and exhibits, fire department equipment, and I guess in Bay 1 specifically, and meeting spaces and programming. And would you like to have me send this all forward to the architect, or?
Do you need any town offices or anything, other space requirements?
No.
Okay, my suggestion would be, one of the suggested, we should ask the architect who deals with space every day and probably has worked for other towns in the same fashion to throw into some suggestions as well.
That's fine.
Throw in some what? Suggestions?
To offer some suggestions as to what other towns have done
Okay.
and what might be.
could do that.
Okay,
Yep. We'll do that.
all right. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Yes, thank you. Thanks, guys. Okay. Personnel,
So I'm just, we voted on the upstairs, are we voting on the downstairs or no?
I think what we're gonna do is, consensus is to come up with the 4 ideas, give them to the architect and come up with suggested uses, or ask for recommendations from he or she as to these uses. Is that correct? So
Right.
stated, okay.
I just want to make it clear
Yeah,
that although we voted on the upstairs,
Mm-hmm.
that's just an offer of a suggested use as well.
You got
I
it.
don't want people to think. we
Eventually, he'll
voted
come
on
with the architect will come with the entire plan.
Right.
The whole
We'll
pile.
vote on everything.
Right.
We'll vote on it as a whole, right?
Right, okay. Thank you for that clarification. Item 12 on our agenda is the Personnel Committee report. I'll start if that's okay,
Sure,
Tony.
yep.
The Personnel Committee, Sandy, me, and Dwight met this morning, was it? It seems like it was a year ago. To review and vote on a recommendation to hire a maintainer 3 for the Public Works Department. And maybe, Tony, you could explain the way you did to
Sure.
the Personnel Committee about what happened.
We have a position available to maintainer 3 position. We've done is we've created a maintainer 3 position and who would also help as a mechanic, because we have a mechanic's position open and we have a maintainer 3 position open. We're not prepared at this time to fill the mechanic's position, but we feel filling the maintainer 3 position with someone with mechanical ability may help to, we'll evaluate how that impacts our operations and the future of the other position. So we went out to advertise. We received several applications, and we've interviewed 3, along with Warren Connors, and our choice is David Newkirk of Seymour, Connecticut.
And he's a maintainer 3.
He will be.
Well, or what, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what the job.
Maintainer 3 is the lowest.
Right, okay, and his,
He was a maintainer 1. in his
I
residence.
don't need it.
Tony says is equal to a maintainer.
These are for
3.
Dwight and
Okay,
Joe.
I understand. So, but his compensation is as a maintainer 3 here.
Correct.
So the fact that he has mechanical abilities.
Right, he'll be like an assistant to the mechanic.
Assistant,
So when
right.
it's busy in the shop, he'll help, extra set of hands, do basic mechanic work.
But for the same compensation.
Correct, the maintainer 3,
Straight
right.
maintainer.
That's correct.
Okay, so with that, the committee voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that David Newkirk be hired, you have his CV just passed out, be hired to fill the vacant position of Maintainer 3 in the Public Works Department, compensation at $27.06 an hour, contingent upon successful completion of 120 days probation, and getting successful results related to a background check, pre-employment physical, and drug and alcohol testing. So I'll make a motion that we do that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions or discussions on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We're moving, thank you.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah,
That we go to 18?
well, then we gotta throw all the cameras out. I think we can bong through this.
All right, I've just been watching them out there.
They're just marching around. My report is like 1 minute.
All right,
30 seconds.
let's keep going, see.
Well, you're on.
I'm gonna do a Joe dive. The only thing I want to talk about is AMR. AMR does our emergency medical service in town. We have a contract with them that expired December 31st, and this past December 31st. We've talked to them and we've executed an extension. They've agreed to an extension of 60 days to give the town the opportunity to explore possibly doing an RFP to try and get somebody who can give us similar service, better service for a more a less expensive price. We had a preliminary discussion. Tony, myself, and Roy Ivans, who's chairman of the EMS Commission, with a representative of AMR. We also had a discussion with a representative of one of the other ambulance services in this region, Nelson Ambulance. And it's a very complicated issue, but suffice it to say, Tony is looking into into cheaper alternatives with equal or better service. So we do have the extension to the end of February, and we will hopefully be able to either make a recommendation to do an RFP or not.
So Gary, I'm sorry, if they extend it till the end of February, the end of.
February.
You said 60 days?
60 days, yep.
So do we do the RFP and then have to have the solution by then, or do we have to?
So it's a good question. Here's the problem with trying to substitute service for emergency medical purposes. The state of Connecticut licenses the town to perform to perform this service. The town has in turn turned the license over to AMR. AMR is now the holder of the town's license. To get that license back, so we can choose somebody other than AMR, you have to petition the Department of Public Health, state of Connecticut. If AMR objects and says they do not want to give it back to us, which they have routinely been doing to other towns in the area. In fact, Milford just had a contested a petition that lasted over a year. They just got a decision, and Milford was awarded back their license so they can go out and hire another provider. We would have to start a petition. We've already we have a proposal from a lawyer from Milford who does this kind of work and represented Milford. He's been pretty much an expert on this area. We have to decide whether it would be worth a large expense to go through the petition process in order to change our carrier, or whether we try and negotiate the best kind of a deal with AMR. It's a very complicated, crazy situation. We can't make a change until we get that license back from AMR. AMR will not give it back to us voluntarily. We have to petition the state of Connecticut to get it back, and they have a proceeding, an actual hearing
But
on
none
the
of
issues.
that happens by February.
Nothing happens by February, no. In all likelihood, we will probably be looking at another, unless AMR comes in with a fabulous proposal, which I doubt that they will, but it's possible. We're looking at either another extension or extending the agreement for a period of time to give us some time to do it.
Enough time to petition.
Yep. And AMR has to, under the state statute, they have to provide service to us. They can't abandon us and not have ambulance
But the
service.
statute also gives them the power to say no.
To say absolutely, I was floored because I've never heard that before, but they
Quite an
absolutely have the right.
education I've gotten.
They absolutely have the right to say no, and we can't get it back from them unless the state approves our application.
All right, your time's up.
Okay.
And that's all I have. That's all I
One of the
have.
things I wanted to add is,
Sheesh.
and I agree, it's a long process, but we could save hundreds of thousands of dollars if we go to another thing, get better service and everything else, if we're able to get the license
Well,
back.
that's
So-
not, that's what we think and we hope,
I
but that's
understand.
not necessarily true, because AMR, we were negotiating with them for a lower price. Of course, they said no, but they said no in such a way to make us believe that they were not sort of exaggerating, and then we talked to a competitor who basically did not make a commitment that it could do it for a lower price. So it's not
Interesting.
necessarily true that we will get a lower price. Hopefully we will, but I don't know.
But isn't it a combination of better price, but also much better service?
Service,
Yes.
it's a combination of
Better
both.
service.
We are being taken advantage of now, clearly.
If you talk to the chairman of the EMS commission,
Well-
he doesn't believe we're being taken, he believes the response times are within what we
It's
have.
not only response time, though.
Yeah.
That's only one measure.
Well, what are the other measures, Sandy?
The amount of time that the vehicle's actually in Woodbridge versus in other towns.
And that's a problem. The AMR has a responsibility under mutual aid. If we get a call from Bethany, they must respond to that call in Bethany. They don't want to do it, but they must by law. Just as if they're busy in Woodbridge, somebody from
Yeah,
West
but they're
Haven is going to have to
supposed
respond.
to also backfill within a certain amount of time. And when I
Yes.
asked the question, how do we know they're backfilling, they won't give us the answer. They won't give us the data.
Well, you're right.
And that's an issue.
No, there's a lot of issues.
Because Woodbridge
right.
is paying for a car to be here 100% of the time.
Right.
We own that car. And if he leaves town, and if they don't backfill, and somebody dies, or somebody because we're not responding, you know,
Those
Well,
are
that
all
data
those are all the
That
important
data
issues.
should be
Yes.
useful when we go to petition.
Absolutely.
Well, if we can prove they're not
Yes.
backfilling, they say they're backfilling.
You're right.
There's no question that they say they're backfilling.
They have
Well,
that.
yeah,
Tony
but
and I
the
have met
data-
with them.
yeah, but when
data
you ask the
doesn't-
police, they're supposed to sign on. They sign out, and when they come back, they sign on. But the thing is, when they're backfilling, they should be signing on that I'm in Woodbridge. And they're not doing that.
And if
And
they're
they're
not
not
doing
doing
it,
it.
that gives us more argument to get the license.
I understand
back.
that.
But we've got to
There-
prove it.
There are issues we have to
We've
deal
got to
with
prove
that.
it, yes.
Very
Okay, that's all.
Okay.
Too long.
Great.
Too long.
All
Wait.
right.
Way too long.
Item 14, I'll make a motion that we acknowledge receipt of the town clerk's reports that are in your packet.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, that was quick.
Yep. You also have in your, you have in your packet the minutes of December 11th, 2019. I'll make a motion that we approve them. Is there a second? Anybody have any omissions, changes, corrections?
Did not.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. They're all done. Item 16, you have in your packet a resignation from Chester Sharp from the Recreation Commission and Julie Parr from Conservation Commission. Julie moved out of town. I'll make a motion that we accept both of those resignations with regret. Is there a second?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And then we have some appointments. First one is, let's see, the Cable Advisory Council. It's a Democratic slot. I can't remember who vacated it, but, Mika, is there any nominations?
No.
No, this is for Cable Advisory.
I
We're
think this
number
was-
17 already.
In reality, this was adding, it wasn't a vacate, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, what?
Cable advisory, isn't it an addition, an open position?
It was an open position for a
It was an
very
open
long
position,
time.
Right.
Yes.
So I make a motion that we nominate George Grothier.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other nominations?
Well, we were never given any notice.
Right. That's fine.
Oh, it came out,
Came out when? Yesterday afternoon.
no. When did we
No?
mail out? Friday, Thursday, Friday?
Yeah,
Agenda
that's-
was on Friday.
That's okay. I was in Florida personally, but.
I can't
And
help
I
that.
delivered,
Well, you can't.
I delivered it
All right,
to
let-
your mailbox.
Listen, this is no reflection on you.
Okay, go ahead.
But you cannot give us information on Friday in a packet and expect that that's the first thing we open, we could be aware. It falls on deaf ears, I understand. All I'm saying is, don't turn and ask for, you know yourself, the typical process here is to talk to the other side and say, we're doing appointments, if you guys have any, get your resumes to Mrs. Shaw. Did that happen?
No.
Okay.
Didn't happen.
Let's move on.
Okay, so I'll call for.
Don't tell me I got a package on Friday.
Okay. All in
It's getting
favor?
too late in the night for that
Okay,
nonsense.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, thank you.
Made and seconded that motion.
I made the motion, Jerry, and I believe Sandy seconded it.
Okay, thank you. Next is Library Commission. This is a Democratic slot, so I didn't ask for an appointment from you guys. We have, you go ahead, do you have a nomination? Mika?
Nomination is Bettina Scott Brigadier.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next one is the Recreation Commission to June 30th. That
Democratic
is
slot.
also a Democratic slot,
Right, it's a
Chester
Democratic.
Sharp. You have a nomination, Mika?
I make a motion to nominate Kimberly Ann Hines.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And the last one is the Zoning Board of Appeals. I think it's a Democratic slot, however, okay, Mika, do you have a nomination?
Nomination is Celia Waters.
Okay, she's unaffiliated, but filling that slot. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks. And now we're done with all of that. We move to item 18. We bring the people in, or wait? I'll make a motion that we enter an executive session pursuant to Section 1-200, 6C of the Connecticut General Statutes related to public safety, and would first invite Robert Burke, Chair of the Police Commission, and Police Chief Frank Cappiello, and also invite Tony and Jerry Weiner in. And that's it.
You have to leave, Jerry.
Yeah, thank you. I came tonight to address the blight ordinance. My understanding was that was on the agenda.
It was, we had a 7 o'clock public hearing and it was approved.
I saw it online as 8 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
The minutes are online at 7.
7?
Yes.
So, would it do any good if I offered some comments?
I don't think you can at this point.
It's already done.
It's done.
And the only time you have comments is public comment or on the specific issue.
Or you can probably submit his comments in writing.
You want to do it in writing?
You can submit them in writing.
Or if there's a question or something, I'm happy to.
If the board wants to hear from him.
I'd rather speak to it. It's a very, very important issue because it affects the entire town.
Okay, what is the board's, we
up to the
we have a
board.
motion
I mean,
pending to go into executive session. And
Mr.
we have a
Selectman,
second.
I promise not to take more.
I don't think we can.
Why don't we do the executive session
3 or
first?
4
All
minutes.
right, can you wait till after executive session?
Yes.
Fine, all right. Let's go into executive session and invite the people we said. There's a second, and we motioned, correct? Okay.
I'll second.
Do I, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.